we paused, so we have to go back in. Can I get a,
I make a motion to go back into,
Mr. Oakland,
my meeting.
Mr. Oakland's first, Mrs. Weber's second motion.
Anybody want a second?
Yeah, yeah, we got you.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, Mr. President, our first agenda item that I have to break
You
is
wanna-
enhance
What time did they leave?
12:30. Oh, I'm sorry, yes. So we have our second group of Educator Rising students. If y'all wouldn't mind standing up and introduce yourself, let us know where you're from and what potentially, I know not all of you want to be teachers, but if you were a teacher, what would you project yourself to be a teacher of and for?
Hello, I'm Paula. I'm from Florida, but I've been in the St. Charles school system my whole life.
Okay.
I'm from Hornville. I'm a junior at Hornville High School. If I were to become a teacher, I would love to teach kindergarten.
Hi, my name is Destin. I'm from Atlanta, but I came here when I was in elementary school, so I've been in the parish for a long time. If I wanted to be a teacher, I would want to teach elementary, but pre-K to first grade.
Hi, my name is Liberty. I'm originally from St. Mary Parish, but I moved here in the 4th grade. I'm a junior at Destrehan, and if I became a teacher, I would want to teach high school science.
Hi, my name's Evelyn. I grew up in St. Charles Parish my whole life, and I really hope to teach younger grades, and I'm a sophomore at Destrehan.
Hi, my name is Micaiah. I'm originally from Orleans Parish, but I've been in St. Charles Parish for the majority of my life at Destrehan High School. And when I become a teacher, I hope to teach 9th and 10th grade math.
Hi, my name's Elizabeth, and I'm originally from Metairie, but I moved here for around 7th grade, I think. And if I was a teacher, I would really like to teach early education.
Hi, I'm Avery, and I'm originally from Mississippi. I'm a junior at Hornville High School, and if I were to be a teacher, I would love to teach elementary school English.
Hi, my name's Rochelle. I'm from Luling, and I'm a senior at Destrehan, and I would like to be an elementary school librarian. Oh, Hahnville.
So our first agenda item after lunch is enhanced enrollment process update. We have Ms. Erin Christian and Ms. Jerry Smith that wanted to provide an update based on some of the changes that have been instituted in our Child Welfare and Attendance Office relative to enrollment. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Christian and Ms. Smith.
So good afternoon, board members. Thank you for an opportunity to provide you with this update. You may recall that we presented to you all at your retreat in April. You all gave us the approval to move forward with the enhanced enrollment process. In particular, today, Erin will be highlighting the temporary residency component. I just have to say that we're in the midst of a season of hearing some of the most amazing stories about why they have absolutely no possessions in their homes. All the clothes are being washed, all the shoes are being, restored. However, I just want to say that we're very grateful for your support, and in particular, Erin will be highlighting the temporary residency process, and those are our families that do not have their own utility bills, and they are living with another family. And I also want to just compliment Erin on the tremendous leadership that she has provided for this initiative, and with that, I turn it over to her.
Thank you. Again, thank you for the opportunity to give an update on all the supports that y'all provided our office and in the student service office. This has been a 3-year process ongoing, so today we'll focus on temporary residency. Some of the updates with the board policy, I just kind of wanted to review. We kind of reviewed this back in February as well as April. Current residency renewal policy. We were asked to renew by the board, to renew temporary residency every year. Previously, the school board policy was every 3 years, and we had seen some processing issues with a 3-year renewal with that from going into certain schools and kind of where we had some gaps. So when the board asked me to pursue that, that's kind of where this update is coming from with temporary residency. So I just wanted to go through annually thereafter, no longer by grade level, because they were pre-K, K 3, 6, 9, and now we do them every year because temporary residency typically is a short term. Parents and legal guardians of Head Starts as well are also included in that. A lot of times we look at pre-K, the start and a change of school, right? So if they're changing sites of that. So now that it's every year annually, we don't have to worry about, well, you're going to this school, you're going to this school, or you're placed at this school. It's a lot more streamlined. And I will say some of the positive feedback we've gotten from parents was, now I know all my kids all the time, which is some of the maybe not so great customer service we were having, was the 3-year, 1 grade band may be on one renewal year, and the next year a different child was. So it was creating a lot of kind of chaos there. So we've cleaned that up. So it was really positive to see that. The next piece is the enrollment enhancements, to highlight things we've implemented over the past 3 years. We had the audited enrollment documents with the individual cases quarterly, so we still are doing those audits quarterly. We're at the tail end of our summer audit right now. We enhanced the language in school board policy that there requires the in-person presentation of the official birth record. From the incident 3 years ago, we had to kind of change a little bit of that. On the tail end of COVID, we were taking things online and we couldn't really verify the authenticity of the documents. So we've cleaned some of that up and seen positive results on that. Requires identification of the ID to match the physical address, which also helps with that with the students, where they are, and the communication with the school based on where they're sending their mail, right? So how that matches to identify where they are. We've done facilitated trainings with the school office specialist that was implemented. Those are twice a year. We go over policies, things like that, and getting everyone on the same procedure. That way, at one school, one thing is happening, and then we don't have a different procedure at another school. It's all streamlined, it's consistent, and it's transparent for families. They know what they need to bring. We help facilitate that process, and it's consistent. So we're still working towards that, still doing the trainings. We have had some turnover in the SOS because we have 16 different sites. However, we've seen more consistency and positive results from the training. Initial verification of all the records. I touched on that already with QR codes, with birth certificates, making sure those are authentic documents and we're not getting falsified documents with all the use of AI now. If we go again on the next, some continued enrollment enhancements we've had. With your support, we've hired a full-time compliance officer to do home visits and wellness checks if needed. Those have been working really well. Purchased the current for verification of paperwork. That's to help us with the authenticity of the document and verification of things that come into our office. We've hired a full-time enrollment technician that started in this past spring and worked the first summer through the enrollment. And we've seen really a lot of positive results on that end with being able to provide the service of more efficient processing through our office. And we'll go into some of those numbers later and you'll kind of see.
So she's the one that's in the front office at the beginning of the school year, I mean, central office, she's in the front? Or
That was Miss Carla Trish, who was our part-time help.
Okay.
And that's the next actual bullet, right? So the transit, well, not the next one, but that is also something that was a piece of our enhancement, was that we still had that part-time person come in so we could give good customer service when someone came into the school board and would not stop Miss Francois, who's the enrollment technician, who is actually verifying the documents and making sure the schools are communicated to properly and efficiently. She's there to help the families. What are you missing? How can we get that? How can we help you get your packet together so you can submit it? And answering questions right there on the spot. So we didn't have to stop and come up. So the the process was still working, and she was working the front. Okay, the other piece at the end was the transition school office specialist to the 12-month employees at each site. I will say that, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, it was a hard transition. Not because lack of effort, but it was kind of short-termed in, and then what that looks like, right? So those are some things we expect to even be better next year. Moving on to overview of the TR renewal process for data. Residency renewals, this kind of gives you a screenshot from 2003 all the way till this year. You can kind of see on the chart, in 23, 24, we had 1,100 TR applications processed with 448 home visits, and then 270 OZs. As you can see, we have a forward progression of an increase in how many applications are actually processed. We did an audit at the end of last year to project what kind of numbers we were looking at, and looking at what the enrollment technician and staffing and how we could organize ourselves to be able to be efficient, but also have enough staff there to take every renewal every year. And we did 1,100 TR applications processed. We projected 1,300, but as you know, families on temporary residency have either bought a home, they've now gotten into a lease, or they've changed their address and no longer need the TR, right? So there are some numbers in there that some of our families have moved on to different residency, still in compliance, but just a different avenue of applying for enrollment.
And we expect that we will have families still coming in applying for temporary residency.
Correct. We do expect that number to continue to grow through the year. But the big bulk of the TR processing starts in May at the end of school and is open for renewals, and everybody is communicated with starting at the end of May. That process, they get communication, all of those things. We did 435 home visits from the month of June to September. So if you look at that, in the whole year of 23-24, we did 448. So our process has become more efficient in the sense of how many documents we can take at one time, because if you're looking at 1,100 applications processed in probably 3 months, that's a lot of things coming into our office to be able to get through. As you can see, an increase in the OZ waivers as well. The next slide we have is temporary residency action plan. So this is based on what were we going to do with the information of, okay, we have a projected 1,300 applications that are going to come in. That's what we're thinking about. How are we going to go about that for the yearly renewal? And so the additional staff was the enrollment technician, the school office specialist, like we've already talked about, in the front corridor to help guide that customer service in that process. And then we also did the 12-month transition for the SOSs, which I will say, in a positive way, a lot of our parent feedback was it was so nice to not have to come to central office. We could actually go to the school and talk to the people and get enrolled there, and they were able to assist them on the spot. So they didn't have to wait till school opened back up and then turn their leases in or try to turn them into us, and we would accept them and then transfer, and then we had to go through stuff. So a lot more streamlined and accessible for parents. The expansion cost, we did have a projection of a low end and a high end. This is the actual cost that we asked the business office to report for us, the enrollment technician, obviously, and the school-based from June to August, additional cost there. What I will say is that the projected cost at the low end was $208,000, and if you can see, it's at $283, and the high was at $469, was the high projection. So I think the cost of our enhancements was more towards the low cost, the low projection. So
Explain to me the secretary school site days.
So we moved them from 183 days to
Okay, so you
all
mean
year.
yeah, okay,
Yes,
all right.
so we had additional
I
costs.
didn't know if you were thinking hiring another person. You mean in all, because they have now gone all year?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So there was a change in their contract and the cost, and so we projected that cost. And that projection of total cost between the two additions we put in, the low end of that projection would have been a total cost of $208, and we're at $283. The high end of that projection would have been 469,000, but as you can see, we're at the more lower end of the projection. This is our current staffing as based right now with the additional staff. So I just wanted to put that in there as well for our office under myself, the Director of Student Services, and these are all the support staff in there. The next piece is the enrollment audit data. So this is kind of like the meat and potatoes. This is going to give you the 3-year data for all of our applications kind of broken down. So our district total application audit for TR and OZ together. And you can see we are continuing to grow. Temporary residency applications were 1,100, like I stated before, with 308 out-of-zone waivers. Birth record verification, we also track that to see kind of what we're doing in our office based on who's coming in to our district and what we're getting from the schools of if we have any kind of different migration into our system, what is it looking like to verify? And then custody judgment changes, as you can see, has gone up. So that would be in a case where something has happened in the family and the custodial parent is no longer the parent of the child. That could be through DCFS. It could be through a voluntary transfer of custody. Or what we have been seeing is the majority of these are they're exclusions from our school system due to noncompliance with enrollment, and they go to the courthouse and get voluntary transfer of custody to someone who is a legal resident in the parish. So we do see an increase in that. And just to notate that is not something we go out and say, well, if you do this, we're not promoting that at all. We never speak about anyone giving up any kind of custody for any reason. We do not give any advisement on that. So I know there's a lot of things with that, but that is not something at all that our office engages in. Temporary residency enrollment audit data as a continuance. It kind of gives you the 3 years again, how many approved TRs, just to break it down a little bit more. We are approving more TRs, and just the difference between 23, 24, remember those were on a 3-year renewal, so you would have a third of what you were processing to now we are processing all of them. And so we had 1,021 approved and we had 92 denials. Right now, if you see that note on the bottom, it says 107 non-compliant TRs. That means from the communication and the audit process that starts in the spring for the next upcoming enrollment year, we start with letters that go home to the students with school statuses for the parents saying your child is in need of a renewal for residency, for enrollment for the next year. At that point, the SOSs at the school send that communication out in both different modalities, and then they also start calling in June stating, hey, we wanted to make sure that you received your information, we got your letter back, it's saying it's non-deliverable, so we'll see things like that as well. And then they'll call and they have an audit list that they have of their school and who needs to renew. So that secretary then, and that's part of why, part of their job in the summer is to make sure every student, what our goal is to make sure every student has already done their enrollment renewal before school even starts, so we don't have to worry about that for them. We want them to start on time. So that communication goes out and they are continuously calling in the summer in both June and July to get those parents to renew, to work with those families. If there's a barrier, contacting our office to help them through that barrier. All the things. So right now we're at 107 who got the communication, have not complied. We are making personal phone calls. We are doing the things, but in essence, we're looking at our deadline to be the 15th, which is next week, right? And so with those, at some point, we have to exclude those students who have not complied, who did get communication. Right now, that number has dropped from 107. We have 80 students right now. That is our current number, and I'm actually looking at 54 that have been personally contacted that we do expect within today and coming on Wednesday that probably will have an exclusion letter is about 54 students. Okay, just to give you an idea of the number. Okay, and that's accurate as of this morning. Okay. The next piece is our district home visit data, because that just breaks down part of our compliance coordinator and what we hired for our enhancements. Our total home visits were 612 all last year, so cumulatively throughout the year. Once we kind of move past October deadline, we kind of are done with enrollment. That's the goal, right? So we're not looking at enrollment unless you're a new enrolling student or the school has sent a home visit residency check because they have information, whether it's return mail, the students are coming tardy an enormous amount of time. So something is going on with the student that they have talked to the family about and the problem has not resolved and they feel like they have evidence that the student may not be residing in our parish. And there's a form they send us and then we take that form and then go and do the home check, okay? This year, from June to September, we've completed 435. Of the 435, 164 were exclusions, just from the summer enrollment. That's 38% of our home visits. So it seems to be notating us in an accurate way. Our percentage is increasing based on the amount we do and how accurate we are with them. So that is positive for us in that sense. Denials due to residency, you can see a breakdown in the parishes of where we are finding families. And that gives you a very accurate of students who are not in our parish that are enrolled or trying to enroll here, or we're trying to do a renewal and have been here for however long, where they're coming from and what parishes. And then again, custody transfers. If we look at the next chart, some of our enhanced enrollment process challenges. Some of the challenges we faced this summer is, in looking at the big picture of our process, is our compliance coordinator's unexpected leave. He went out in July, so we were short on home visits, so the staff really came together and started to do those home visits. So instead of stopping, we had to kind of maneuver away of the way we were looking at processing things and making sure we were being very intentional on what we were doing with those. We're always intentional. We don't like to do home visits. However, when they're needed, how we prioritize those through. We also have a challenge with when we put out for a detail with the sheriff's office, they're so busy that they don't pick the details up for the district. So they have other details right now with construction at some of the plants, with the roadway, I guess, monitoring. They are doing those details instead of picking up ours. So we have a shortage of even having someone with a compliance officer or myself doing home visits to make sure everybody's safe, both the family and our staff, right? And then so with that, we kind of talked around at Ms. Gales and with Cade's office and with Ms. Smith, and we utilized NOLA security details. So that was something we picked up at late July, August type to engage in that because we needed some assistance because we weren't able to keep up with the paperwork that was coming in. So that was a challenge too because we had to shift that as well. 12-month SOS transition plan. We had a lot of challenges there with the transition of implementation. So we gave the secretaries a year to figure out, is this what they're gonna do? I will tell you the majority of them signed on immediately and were there and worked out their summer schedule, and we did not have we anticipated a different reaction, to be honest. Pleasantly, we were surprised with that. We had some schools that had some unforeseen challenges of maybe starting in July, so then the transition from one feeder school to another, we had some hiccups. I don't foresee some of those happening in the summer, this coming summer, because we're gonna have straight staff already, everything is gonna be selected. I think we only have one spot where we're looking that someone has not signed on to do that 12-month. So that's kind of where we are. The other challenge, which is at the end of our audit right now that we're seeing, is that even though we've given direction, we've had a little bit of follow through on our secretary staff at the schools with the audit. So things that we are expecting that are getting done, we have to clean up. So part of my action plan is to meet with the principals throughout the school year and talk to them specifically about the expectation, because some of those expectations were not followed through on. And it's made it very difficult for us to hold certain parents accountable at certain schools because we didn't have some of the things that we thought were happening were not. So those are some of those. And then one other thing that I didn't put on here that I was thinking about, I'm sorry, I did not, was tracking custody changes and looking at that for exclusions to changing custody to what that is. So that's something I'm also going to be looking at to make sure that we're accurately tracking those and that the schools are communicating with the persons that they're legally supposed to be communicating with. Does anyone have any questions? I kind of talked through this very quickly because I knew we kind of were a little bit behind. This is always a presentation we like to give you data for. There's a lot of moving parts and a lot of things and details in there. So if anybody has any questions.
I don't know about a question, but a comment. I just want to thank y'all for what y'all have done, because I do get calls with this more than anything else. And I think because it's streamlined now, it's cut and dry, that like I tell people, get the documents they're telling you, and if you're legal, you're legal. If you're not, you're not.
Yeah.
So I appreciate everything, Jerry and Aaron, y'all have done. So
Yeah.
it's streamlined, it's cut and dry.
Thank you.
And I say, the board has guided them to do this. This is not their decision, it was our decision. And just call them back. I mean, a lot of them will tell me, oh, you came to my house and call them back. I don't know what to tell you. I don't have the answers.
Yeah.
Thank y'all
Yes.
for the information, because now, I have a much clearer understanding on why a child was gotten a letter asking them not to return to school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I want to commend y'all too for the good work. One bad thing is, y'all affecting the overall attendance of the parents.
Just a little tiny bit.
But that's a good thing.
Yeah.
We have the people in the district that truly belong in the district. Thank you.
I'll just second what they said, because I'm confident when I get a phone call, if I call you guys, I have a pretty darn good idea what's going to be said, and it is. But I'll share with y'all. I don't know if y'all talk about it and step out for a moment, take a call. But there was another district. I was at a meeting yesterday, and I can tell you they've implemented very similar policies. 100 kids that they've.
Oh, we know, they call them for.
I'm well aware. Yeah.
They call Miss, that's
Yeah, so
superintendent.
it was 100, and not only that, they
CWA.
actually found a kid who was expelled from another district. More than one, I should say, and the sheriff's office even got involved because of some major issues. So anyway, that we're not, trust me, just even yesterday morning, I learned we're not alone, so thank you.
So thank you for y'all's support.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Yep, good job.
Okay, next agenda item, Mr. President, is long-range plan for physical
Yes, sir.
education athletics update. We have Mr. Rome, Mr. Rogers, Mr. Foray, which will provide an update relative to the long-range plan for PE and athletics, and then followed by Mr. Rome's presentation with facility needs assessment and attendance zone. So, with that said, I'll hand it over to two of the three stooges that are in gray, and one in white.
Yeah, I didn't get the memo. Yeah.
The show is yours.
Yes, thank you, I appreciate it. Yes, our long-range plan for physical education and athletic facilities, Phase 2, better known as our PEEF, for those that like the acronyms. As you know, we're kind of well into the Phase 2 of this plan. We pride ourselves on being AAA district. Through the bond issue, we've been able to tackle a lot of projects on the arts and academic side, whether it be the renovations, Luling, R.K. Smith, J.B. Morton Band Choir, the initiative we're getting ready to go out on in regards to the lighting and sound infrastructure throughout the district. So obviously taking care of the arts and academics through that mechanism, along with long-range major maintenance, principals, capital improvements, and such. The long-range plan for physical education and athletic facilities takes care of just that. not just PE, but athletics as well. So we're here today to just give you an update. We're about a year into that plan. The meat and potatoes of the presentation will be handled by Mr. Rogers and Mr. Foray. I do want to commend them. You know, I tasked them kind of early on with this, with the large project load we have to track these projects, to stay on top of the timeline, stay on top of budgeting, and they've also been integral in our construction side of things. If they participated in the stakeholder meetings to come up with the plans, and they also participate in our construction meetings. So with that being said, just kind of general overview of what we're going to be talking about, and then I'll turn it over to them. The first piece, Mr. Rogers will kind of review the project status, projects that are complete, projects that are in progress, and projects that are in the design phase. Just give you a feel of where we are in that process. And then the majority of the presentation, which we want to focus on and draw your attention to, is going to be the second attachment, which is pretty much a detailed table that outlines all the projects, where they're taking place, initial estimated costs, revised estimated costs, projected costs, actual costs, timeline, so forth and so on. The main point of that is to get everybody to realize that this plan, when developed, was just that, a plan. We had ideas, concepts through the stakeholder groups where we decided on the things that would be done or we wanted to pursue. We did some rough estimating on that based on, you know, historical data, square footage cost, and things of that nature. But as we dive deeper into the project, you'll see, and went through the planning process, which many of the board members participated in, we appreciate y'all for that. When you get into the nuts and bolts of the planning and the details of the site, that's when you start seeing adjustments in the pricing. Some of it up, some of it down, but we've got some pretty good news to report that we're not too far out of line or out of kilter or balance with where we initially projected. So with that being said, I'm going to sit back and let these guys take over the show, turn it over to Mr. Rogers.
We're going to move to Team Gray.
Yep.
In board docs, there's two attachments. One's a presentation and one's a one-pager updating on figure numbers that Mr. Foray will go through. So I'm going to kind of take you through the presentation on what's been complete, where we are, and where we're going. So our first slide is the completion of our projects. You know, we've completed the baseball, softball, turf projects. Want to point out that they're being used for PE, football practices, soccer practices when we're in the playoffs. So it's more than just a baseball, softball field for them. 2 and 3 kind of coincide with each other on our updated, or actually elementary running tracks and fitness stations. We were very intentional with the fitness stations, not only to increase our health in our elementary school students, but also including some accessible equipment for our ADA and special needs population with that, which took care of some of our graded fields at that level.
And only one quick comment to that. I've seen more pictures on Instagram and Facebook of teachers utilizing our track, which is a good thing. After hours, they've been getting their
TikToks.
health and wetness in. That's right, TikToks as well.
If I'm not mistaken, New Sarpy actually has
New
a teachers club, fitness club that was created after the fitness track that they utilize.
They are out of control. Follow Ms. Sarpy on Instagram or TikTok.
I think
they are hilarious.
I think it's Miss Chloe Simmons.
Yeah.
The PE teacher. She's the one that created the group.
So it's pretty good. So we're actually going to ask her to do some small videos on proper use of equipment and how you can utilize it within your physical education program. So she's been pretty interested in it. They're pretty good. Our electronic basketball goals, it's updating our cabling system, and it used to be the old drill to be able to raise the goals. Well, some of them were starting to stick, so that drill was turning. So it's dual purpose to create a safer environment for our PE teachers as well as our coaches, and more efficient to be able to raise our goals electronically when we have to raise them for volleyball games and things of that nature. Updated our middle school scoreboards. Some of them were becoming obsolete, so the parts and pieces to be able to operate them were no longer available, so this gave us an opportunity. Now each middle school gym has 2 scoreboards, so regardless which way you're going on the court, you can see the scoreboard. And then really resurfacing our tennis courts, which are actually in our school colors. For PE and athletics, you know, it's a safety court for them, instills a sense of pride for our schools, and we've received a lot of compliments about those as well. Our projects that are in progress, of course, our AAA alumni centers, they're to be completed in January. Big conversation piece during our Friday night football games. We were able to get on the radio with WWL last Friday to talk about our long-range plan, but also talk about what those alumni centers will be used for, that it's just not going to be during a Friday night football game, that we'll have small intimate theater performances, small band, and small group testing. So it's really, truly a AAA alumni center, and we've had a group that's going out to LSU. We're going to have a digital Hall of Fame in there and everything, so we're going to be able to incorporate a lot of history within our schools and school programs. If you've been on Destrehan's campus, you've seen the parking lot that's closer to our baseball, softball fields. We are in the process, and I'll let Mr. Foray speak on that in a second, where we are at Hornville, but Destrehan's been completed. We have another little phase that's going to tie in some more parking with the AAA Alumni Center over there, but this allows for our handicap accessibility needs as well as our elderly population having easier access to our facilities. We've upgraded our field event areas at Hornville. We are in process right now developing for Destrehan. Of course, that's where we park buses right now for events, so we're delaying that a little bit, but it should be projected to be done for track season. Our auxiliary middle school gyms are in progress right now. They're out for bid. We had a meeting with our architect just this week, so those are in progress. We're covering our ROTC spaces. Destrehan is complete. Hornville, we have some site visits lined up to get them on board as well. Again, ROTC is a way to get PE credit, as well as they have all their drills and everything after school, so it gives them a space to practice for inclement weather.
If I could just point on that, Mr. Rogers, that the Destrehan facility kind of it necessitated going first because it was a dual purpose. It's the new special ed drop-off for safety purposes, plus much more accessibility to the site there, our covered access to drop off our special needs population. So we were able to kind of kill two birds with one stone, if you will, and make those enhancements.
Yep, I think it's a great point. And our upgrades to our stadiums, of course, the fencing, the black wrought iron fencing, and the updates to the press box, I think really makes things pop. The biggest compliment, and kind of like the PE teacher sharing all of her videos, have been the restrooms. We've received multiple text messages and thank yous and so on and so forth about just the experience they've had within the updated restrooms. The air conditioning, correct.
My
So-
wife is so happy. Like the
Yeah.
first time she used it, she came to me on the track and said, "Kent, that is amazing."
Yeah.
You don't know, it was so hot in there, like, you couldn't even breathe in it.
That's right.
But we're going to come to you later. We need extra deputies to move people out of restrooms. Starting to loiter a little bit more, but
Yeah.
Especially
I think it's a
in
good problem.
the humidity timeout.
Right. And you know, we're joking about it, but again, to think through the process, to not only it's athletics, but for PE purposes when they're out in the stadium to provide that environment for them as well, right? So we do have some more upgrades that will be happening, archways, brick columnways, and everything to enhance our entryways for that. And we have a couple of pictures that are attached. Of course, these are renderings of the middle school gym. We had to take a picture of the highly, what's that? Oh, I'm sorry. I did skip the updated high school scoreboards. Thanks, Mr. Foray. So the high school gyms have been updated with a program that will be utilized in our schools. It comes with a curriculum that both high schools will be teaching that incorporates digital graphics, digital media. They'll be able to run the scoreboards for us, because with these scoreboards, we didn't want them to just be stagnant. So we're actually, Mr. Foray is working with both high schools and who's going to be teaching it and teaching that curriculum to be able to develop all of the things that go with enhancing the fan experience with those scoreboards. So the stadium scoreboards will be coming online about March-ish. We wanted to make sure that they were installed because the class will be held in the spring, so we can develop that first cohort that comes through. So when football and volleyball and all of those seasons start in August, that we will have these boards rocking and rolling to enhance the experience that they have there.
And I think it opens up opportunities for some of our other students that maybe on a football night, they're not on a dance team, cheerleader, or on a football team, that they could be a part of the game day experience. And, you know, they're coming out the curriculum, they're working the scoreboard, they're actually putting the graphics out there. We're incorporating more of our students into that game day experience, whether it's football, volleyball, soccer, they're gonna be used for all of them. So we're gonna need that integration of those other students that might want to be a part of it, just doesn't fit into that area.
But there's a pipeline in the college, as y'all well know, right? And we could go from the two that were hired at USC from LSU down to, look, I don't care what level you're on. I mean, you always see somebody with getting some type of content with the camera, you know? somebody leads report on that.
It's kind of timely that this update, because some of the things that we have implemented and picked up from, not just from the work and the research that these guys have done, but the Eastern States Consortium visits, the visit that specifically when it came to school boards, the wrought iron fencing, I recall sending pictures directly
From
to,
Tennessee.
from Tennessee, correct, relative to those things, and now to incorporate, and we said, look, their students are running these scoreboards, they're running, like it's integrated within, so I say that because I'm just thinking of, this weekend we leave to go to Salem City, Virginia, but that's why it's so important for us to continue to look at what other school systems are doing and not just look from within, but look from without too, and this is just a perfect example of that model.
Yep.
So.
Mr. Elliott.
So the scoreboards are gonna have all the bells and whistles?
All the bells and whistles, yes, sir. That's right. And we talk about integrating it with the students, but before we even had the curriculum in, and we installed it at Hornville, the two team managers dove in with athletic director Mindy LaBeouf, and absolutely, they run the boards now. So when you see a spike go up, or you see ace and it comes back and it's going off, that is a team manager that is running that school board, who just integrated themselves in. And honestly, it's what we say nowadays, you give the child the phone, they'll teach you how to use the phone. And it was almost the same way, like me and Mindy had a surface level, and once we handed it to them, it's like they took off with it. It's like, and then Mindy started adding more graphics, and she's like, and one of the little girls says, I think I can make a graphic. And she's like, well, go ahead, make it on your phone, I'll integrate it.
It's pretty dynamic. If you haven't been to a volleyball game yet,
Yeah, you go check it out.
It's pretty cool.
And we have the scorers table now with the front digital sign on it that
Yeah.
keeps score and everything, so.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's
I
really
like
cool.
it. Love it.
Yep. So moving into our design phase, we're in talks right now with architects about our elementary auxiliary gyms and closing those covered play areas. Our track and field upgrades at our middle school sites, I'll let Mr. Foray go into a little bit with that. Lighting for baseball, softball, and tennis courts will be coming on soon. Our multi-purpose building will be located on the practice fields that are there now. It'll be an enclosed building, covered area with turf, so it could be used for anything band camp in July when it's hot. If we get any wet ball activity where we get off the field, lightning delays and so on and so forth, we're not actually going inside and canceling practice. We have a facility to use. PE when it's extremely hot, our dance and cheer when they're fighting for space as well. So it's really going to be a true multi-purpose facility. Stadium turf replacement, again, Mr. Foray will get into it, and then finishing up Hornville's parking lot closer to their baseball, softball facility with sidewalk accessibility to both facilities there.
I have a question on the elementary school closing in those play areas. What is that gonna, close them in, climate control?
Yes.
I mean, what's
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but basically, it's making it an auxiliary gym. So we're in talks with the architect that was pre-awarded the project. The board awarded out all the architects for the design phase of that, and that's where we're gonna be kind of getting into the next phase. We wanted to hone down on the pricing of our remaining projects. So we actually have some drafts that we're gonna be sharing with the schools for one, budgeting purpose, but also for design. So to let you know that it would be fully enclosed, the full court surfacing, new goals, graphics, air condition, new lighting, restrooms, storage space. So, yeah, we're really going to make them a nice facility for the elementary schools. And we're going to be going out to the schools to share the plans with them for any little ideas they have that makes it a functional space for them.
we would have one in every
Elementary school.
school.
That's correct. And Lakewood.
Now, remember,
currently
yeah, Lakewood already
yeah.
has one.
Lakewood currently has a gym, as does Carver, and we put it in the plans for the East Bank Head Start site to receive a smaller version of this type of
Wait, I
facility.
think that was my question. Are
Yeah.
we doing anything for, because I passed out there the road, it's blistering hot, and I looked
Yep.
for those kids out there, and I'm like,
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, we're gonna have
now
it.
we have 3 rows there.
Yep. It'll be a indoor air-conditioned facility for East Bank Head Start as well. But like I said, with Lakewood, we did not have to reproduce one, nor with Carver Early Learning Center, because they have the gym already.
Lakewood has an outdoor.
They do.
play.
They do.
It's
Yes, sir.
gonna remain that?
It'll just remain outdoor. Yes, sir. Yeah.
I know at one time we had talked about dressing up the entrances to the high school stadiums.
Yep.
That's still a part of it.
That's
And
part
we
of the
still-
stadium
We still
upgrade.
have, if you look at that budget item, when we get to that point, you still see there's money allowed there and allocated there, and that money that's allocated there is mainly for those stadium entrances. Some of them were waiting for the parking lots and the driveways to be there so that we could actually incorporate it with the new parking lots. So that is still in there.
A great question and a segue to
Yeah, so-
move into the,
So
your next one page that's attached with
So as my
numbers.
second board retreat, it's really a pleasure to y'all to be a part of the PPS team and operations team, coming from an administrator, because it allows me to see projects not only from an athletic standpoint, from an art standpoint, walking through JB and looking at the new choir and band, going to Luland and seeing that we got some renovations for our little geniuses, you know, and not only that, we giving real life experiences at the Satellite Center with the new building, you know, and giving those kids opportunities. So it's really a pleasure to be a part of this. So if y'all look at that attached document that says long-range physical education and athletic facilities, as Johnny mentioned, those was estimates was originally compiled a few years ago. Now that we completed some projects and we kind of revised some of the estimates, and again, the reason why we put that, we want to be fully transparent with it. What we did was I scheduled some meetings, myself and this group, scheduled meeting with architects, but because we have completed some projects now, and we have some projects that are on, so we're getting some numbers that we can put that's more, I guess I could say, present, that's more actual. Maybe not perfect, but more actual. I can identify some of our budget that we have completed already that we learned that we were under. So for example, elementary and middle school field grading, we're under there as far as that price. If we look at the middle school scoreboards, we're under budget on that one. If we look at installing electronic goals, we're under. And then on the elementary fitness tracks, we actually came under budget on that also. So when we talk about that, we also did some consulting with the schools, because more and more we look at this long-range plan, we're putting more and more facilities in, and we're kind of running out of green space. I'm just gonna be honest. So in the plan had the opportunity to add additional courts as far as lighting. Well, with more and more we look at how we're losing green space, we agreed with the schools that we would eliminate the additional courts, but also keep in there that we're gonna light them, because the initial goal was for them to complete their matches. So if we light the 4 courts that we have now, they will be able to complete their matches. So that's gonna stay in there. But by eliminating the 2 courts, we actually have a cost savings right there also, not only with some green space saving. But again, we're kind of running some unforeseen issues. As we talk about building the middle school auxiliary gyms, as we know, JB's kind of in a flood zone. So when we got into the meats and potatoes of that one, basically we had some infrastructure issues. We had to lift it 6 feet. We had to add ramps. We had to add railings. We had to add more piles. So there, it incurred a cost in that one facility. Also, I missed also where we were a little under, which is a projected under. So when we're going to build those practice tracks at the middle school facilities, we're kind of under extremely big time. And we were able to get a solid number on that, because after we built 9 fitness tracks of 1/8 of a mile, we kind of have an understanding of what it's going to cost now. So we have a more solid number on that. When we talk about unforeseen projects, and it kind of, I'm going to say, we kicked the can down the line because we ran against the Hornville parking lot. So when we started in the design phase with that and started dealing with the architects, and we started planning this out, of course, we know Hornville was built in a swamp, and drainage became an issue. Okay, and it became an issue, so it really became in depth in the design of those parking lots to make sure that we keep it from flooding. And also, I mean, like Kate said, and I picked up on this also. I mean, we have our handicap accessibility to those fields pretty tough. You got to go down rocks. You know, it's our elderly even that can even walk and move.
Baby strollers.
Yeah, baby strollers. So by adding these sidewalks in there, it's really gonna cover us as far as coverage, insurance wise. So there's some more things. But again, it may incur a cost there. Again, when we talk about the bathrooms, I can't tell you how many compliments that I hear about it. But again, that wasn't originally in a project. I think that came about from having conversation with some board members and some stakeholders, that we added that into a project. So that was an unforeseen cost that was added into that stadium renovation, those 4 bathrooms. So that was an unforeseen
Value
cost.
added.
Huh?
Value
Value
added.
added.
Value added, I'm sorry, you're right. So Kate kind of mentioned the last one, and we talk about the turf. And so the turf has always been on a long-range plan. It was always on a long-range maintenance, major maintenance plan. We moved that over to the PE and athletic facilities plan because it's kind of more fitting there. But over the past couple years, every summer we do GMAX testing on our turf to make sure that it's safe and we're covered. That goes along when we groom our turf. Although we have passed, the past 2 years that I've been here, it is showing some declining health. So we're gonna have to move forward. So that's where I'm gonna kind of end right there, and I'm just gonna kind of ask y'all if y'all give us approval to proceed with this long-range plan we have mapped out.
That includes the replacement of the turf since it's getting.
Both fields
Yeah,
replaced.
yeah.
So
Yes.
average lifespan of a turf field is 8 to 10 years with overuse, and we use our fields. PE uses our fields. Dance team uses our fields. Football, soccer, and we're on year 11. We're on year 11.
Yeah.
And
What's
with,
the original warranty on those turfs? Was it?
I wanna
Remember
say
we
it was-
upgraded to Hornville?
Yes.
And then we did it because of the enhanced warranty that came with it.
We did the first turf in 2007, and it was a 5-year manufacturer's warranty, and we did a insured third-party warranty, I believe, to get it to 8 years. But if you may recall, many of you were on the board at that point in time, but just a recap, there was a problem with the manufacturer with the fibers. There was a big lawsuit, but the longest story short of it, we could have replaced it with that same turf after about 8 years of use and get it scot-free. Or we could take the upgraded version, the new version that didn't have the issues with the fibers, and that's the direction we went for a fraction of the cost. So we almost got double our value out of that first set of turf. And as Dwayne said, Mr. Forey said, we're past the life expectancy of that right now. So we've gotten pretty good value for our use on it, being that we almost got a double dip on the first one, and we're beyond the life expectancy of the second round.
I didn't realize we were beyond, I knew we were getting close to the light.
yeah, we're right on it.
Right.
Yeah.
And something I didn't mention also, so if you go to the baseball and softball fields, what we have on there is called a cooling infield. And that's what we plan on installing onto the football fields. Give you an example, Mr. George Govern, athletic director at Destrand this summer, while football practice was going on, baseball workouts were going on, he walked over to the rubber pellet infield on the football field and shot a grade, and then walked over to the baseball field and shot a grade. And he had a range from 12 to 20 degrees difference cooler with the new turf. So I mean, that's also a safety for our football team, our soccer teams, and our dance teams. And when we talk about the wet bulb testing, that's what, when the heat, the humidity, the air temperature gets to a certain point that we got to take our teams off, we're less likely to take them off with the new system than we are. So we can see where we moving our football teams and soccer teams off the field more than we are moving our baseball and softball teams.
We're also looking at drainage for Destrand as well, to be able to have a pumping system to move water out of that facility. So we can try to avoid the bubbling of the turf.
Catholic High.
Yeah.
Just needs to be vetted.
Yeah, there are some challenges there, though, and we recognize that, and we're working with the approved designer by the board, Mr. Hebert's firm, Mr. Danny Hebert. The parish has some drainage concerns that I know they're working on addressing, but basically, we're coming to a deadhead a lot at Destrand on the Shexnada Lane outflow system. Once the water heads there and it's full, it's got to kind of wait in line. So the engineer is aware, and they're going to try to be creative to find some ways that we can overcome that challenge while the parish works on their end of the infrastructure as well. So.
But I think they're working on, or it's, I don't know if they're at that part yet, but it's in that big approved one, what was it, a couple
Yes,
months
sir.
ago? Yeah.
That is correct. Yeah.
I will only add, the turf, I would, especially, and I always, just being on the board, I always think liability, right? Like, a few weeks ago, I was at a football game in middle school, and I saw bags sitting close to the field. I was like, hey, kids, anyway, move the bag back, like, don't break it. You know what I mean? Because that's where my head goes immediately, but I would, and if it's not worth it, I would like to know, you know, let the engineer look at it, this shock pad that goes underneath, because let's be honest, that pop of the head on the turf, it is what it is, and then it's, you know, baseball's one thing, but football, as we know, that.
So
That
that,
whiplash, you know.
that is what we're going for.
Okay, good.
And, there's 2 pads, which is 2 warranties. That's exactly what we talked with the architect and engineers about. There's a 10-year warranty on the pad, there's a 25-year warranty. There's not much difference, but we're still gonna do a little bit more investigation before we just react and go with the 25-year.
We plan to put
You know, but that, we're definitely planning on putting that on that.
And I think that's just something, if we were to.
It's called Brock padding.
Yeah, if we were to have some type, we can say, hey, we went above and beyond.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, we
There's
definitely
no
plan on doing it.
we're not negligible here, you know.
So,
Absolutely.
we'll of course entertain any other questions, but with the board's approval, we plan to bring the turf bid authorization request to y'all next month to try to meet that timeline of building it out so we can have it completed by the summertime going into the next season. But that would be a request for y'all at next month's meeting.
Do we give them a,
Yeah, for the turf.
Yeah.
for the whole thing, just
Well,
that
I
they,
wanna know which number we're looking at, the 52 million, the 50, the 60?
Yeah,
the
okay,
30?
yeah.
I keep
So,
going- I keep going
no,
back to the
yeah,
top.
let me,
Back down.
yeah, I'll kind of run through that real quickly.
Okay.
So the first one is the revised overall estimate. Of course, like I said, when we first started, just concept-wise, we had a plan in the 46 to $48 million range. Obviously, as we got into the design phase, we revised that estimate. And Mr. Foray kind of pointed out, as you go across that bottom from left to right, you see our actual expenditures. So those are the hard numbers we have because those projects are already completed. So we know those aren't going to change, right? And then that next column, that third column, the 35+ million, is what we're projecting out. But we feel much stronger and much better, in a better place with this number because we did engage with all of the architects and engineers for any remaining project and started saying, okay, let's go over the details so we won't have as much hidden cost. So that last column is either already designed and we've got a strong estimate, or we kind of, you know, went forward and engaged with those design professionals to say, let's get a strong number here so, you know, we won't see much variance at all. So the final number would be the 52 as opposed to the 50, but when you add in the turf, that's 2 million. So, you know, you're kind of almost what and what, and that goes in line with the pluses and minuses that Mr. Foray outlined. We were under on several, projected over on a couple, but we were able to add in the turf and almost wound up as a net zero gain other than bringing the turf over from the long-range plan for major maintenance.
But Ms. Weber, to your point, I can't see where maybe some of the titles of the columns can lead to some confusion. So when it's brought to the board officially, we'll make sure that that's clear.
so on I just want to go back to the question that, I don't know, one of y'all had, was they were bringing the long-range strategic plan and the PE. Y'all are asking for the thumbs up on.
Just the long-range physical education athletic facility plan. The only major reference to the long-range major maintenance capital improvements plan is that we pulled out the turf replacement project because it made more sense to head it in line with the athletic project. So it's just a switch.
And
Just
that's
a
where
switch.
that $2 million kind of difference comes into play. Yes, ma'am.
So, on the turf, you got thumbs up across the board. Anything else we need?
Perfect.
Good.
Thank you.
Good? All in favor?
Thank y'all.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, Joshua.
Yep, so the next
Rome,
agenda
thanks.
item is facility needs assessments and attendance zones. I'll let Mr. Rome start with this. We'll ask South Central Planning representatives to come forward, please.
Yes. Mr. Josh Manning is going to be joining us from South Central Planning and Development. We'll give him time to get ready for his presentation. Ms. Hegel has it up on the projection device right now. Just to quick introduce the item, you know, periodically we have South Central Planning and Development come in as a strong partner for the school district for as long as I've been here and beyond. probably 30-plus years to work with him, everything from redistricting, which our board members were part of that process, to enrollment zones, to school attendance and facility projections. Periodically, we come with new projections when new subdivisions are proposed within the parish. You may remember we came in the past with Audubon Place, with Victoria Estates, where there's a new potential development, say potential, it's approved, in the earlier stages behind the courthouse, referred to as Madison Place. We asked South Central Planning and Development to do an analysis of that to see where it fit, in our overall study and what the impacts were. So Mr. Manning will shortly, share that information, and we'll entertain any questions the board may have. And then the secondary piece, we came to once or twice before regarding enrollment zones, how enrollment zones were set, how do you go about changing them, any decisions that we want to make relative to that. But we also introduced something that Mr. Manning's been working on, and I think the board and our staff throughout the district is really going to appreciate, is a tool, an interactive map to be able to check on which enrollment zone you are by address without the district, instead of having to read the description, the southwest
Thank you,
corner of
God.
the northeast portion of this street and so forth and so on. So it's through a click version or typing in an actual address, and that tool will be able to be used by administration, board if you're speaking with people, the school office specialist staff, without having to go through hieroglyphics to be able to decipher what those actual zones are. So I'm really excited and appreciate that work they've been doing on that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Manning.
Yeah, thank you. As John said, we'll go over, I'm going to skip this slide and come back to it. But yeah, we're looking at the Madison Place subdivision that, and I'm going to have a hard time reading this, but I think it's about 182 or so residential units that's built basically behind, was it Fashion Boulevard in that area? So we looked at that and just kind of took that, did some analysis on it, and compared it to what was already in your, I think it was a 2023 or thereabouts enrollment plan. All right, so location, it's 223 Joe Louis Lane in Hahnville is the address. It's about 50 acres, single family residential, 182 total lots, and this has been approved now by the Planning and Zoning Commission. It's a 3-phase construction, so you're not going to have all 182 lots coming on board at once, but it'll be phased, over a 3.5 to 4 year period. And a couple of things that you are going to want to consider is, and that they've considered already, is making sure they're having some widening to accommodate the increased traffic, but also the water tie-ins, and they're looking at their street widths and bus turnarounds to make sure they have areas in the subdivision for your school buses to access.
Judge, if I could just interject there for a second, Mr. Manning. As you may or may not know, I do sit as the district representative, school system representative at the Planning and Zoning Commission in meetings. And whenever these subdivisions come up, this one in particular, when we're there getting the information, looking at the plots, looking at the plans, that is one of the key things we do look at. Any safety concerns, anything in relation to our schools, closeness to that. We look at the bus turnarounds to make sure that they're adequate and in place. So we're kind of monitoring these things as they go through it, and the developers are usually pretty good at working with us to ensure our needs, because they want to satisfy us so they can, of course, get the subdivision passed and done correctly.
Okay. So next thing that we did, and we did this analysis, I think at the end of the last school year is when we did this analysis. We looked at your 2023 capacity report. So we looked at what you have on record as what your capacities are at your different schools, and these are the schools that are affected by that development. You have Luling Elementary, R.K. Smith Middle School, and Hahnville High. That enrollment that we used was whatever the latest enrollment was. I think that might have been, we were at the time, that would have been your fall enrollment last year, is I think where we got those numbers from. Which, because usually that Board of Education is 6 months or so All right. Next, we looked at your population just of the parish. And what we're doing with this particular step is to figure out what percentages of your population falls into your different cohorts. So we consider a cohort to be a grouping of ages that are along the same, the same types of population. So we have you're under 5 years old, it's about 5.3%. These are all from your 2020 census numbers, so 5.3%. 5 to 9 years old, we've got 6.6%. 10 to 14 years, 8%. And then you're 15 to 19 years old, 6.5. So your under 18 years population, that'd be your school age population, you're really going to be in that 5 to 18 years old. I have one here is 23.5. I think the actual number was closer to about 18% of the population that is school age population.
And those, Mr. Mayor, those cohorts almost kind of correlate to
Where-
elementary, middle, high.
That's correct,
Which
yep.
would be kind of.
And that's kind of why they do it. They try to break it up very similarly. Next, we looked at persons per household. So based on your 2020 population, you had about 52,000 individuals, 19,000 homes. So you got a kind of an average of 2.5, 2.7 persons per household. So we take that figure, we multiply it by that 182 lots, figure out we're going to expect right about 500 or so individuals who will be living in this development if it's all the way built out, and if all the lots sell like they're expecting it to sell, to be about 500 people. Your school age population are right around that 21% in that 5 to 18 year old. So take about 20% of that 500, and you're right about 100 students, 105 students. So if we distribute that based off of your cohorts, assuming that about 6.5% of that will be elementary, 8% middle, 6.5% high school, you're looking about 30 to 40 students being added to each of those facilities. And we look at it based off of your capacity, what's already there. You're going to still be well within your, less than 90% utilization rate. Luling will be the highest, about 86%. Then R.K. Smith Middle will be at 71%, and Hanville High still well within your utilization rate of 68%.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could make one comment to that, that is something that we're continuing to work on, because Mr. Manning and South Central Planning Development get like our facility data from us. I've talked to the board about it some in the past, that we have it based on number of rooms, and then, the average number of students per room, and kind of work that out to see what the capacity is. We want to continue to hone down on that, because with so many specialty needs today, whether you have small group breakout, itinerant stuff, reading recovery, mental health, some of our traditional classrooms are being absorbed by these programs, which is a good thing. We need the programs, we need the space, but I want to hone down and make sure we're getting the truest and most accurate view of our capacity. So it's nothing that South Central Planning could have done in advance. It's something that I need to give them more inputs to make sure that we have it as precise as we can get. And I'll be working on that over the next year.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely it. We count on you guys to give us what that capacity number is.
Absolutely.
And one thing, John, we had talked earlier this week, one thing that I did not include in this report based on the timing of it, the 4-year-old and pre-K programs will be reallocated to elementary schools, with your early childhood education being housed at East Bank Head Start. So that Luling Elementary number, will probably want to re-examine that as we know what those figures are going to look like, because you're going to be getting close at that point.
Yeah. That was going to be.
It is a good time. Luling, there's been a lot of, obviously, we've had previous discussions relative to Luling Elementary School, the challenges that school presents, just relative to its general population and its capacity, right? I mean, R.K. Smith, obviously, we added an additional wing, but you only have 3 grade bands. Luling, you have pre-kindergarten through fifth. That is something that we are continuing to look at relative to how do we support Luling from a standpoint of managing that many students and still functioning at a high level. It is something that we continue to look at. We're monitoring very closely this year, and certainly with the incoming set of students relative to pre-K is going to, require an additional focus specifically with this. But I can share with the board, Luling continues to be one of the schools that we are probably focused on. I should never say more closely, but just by byproduct of its population and of its specific challenges, it is something that we are monitoring and continue to try to provide support, make tweaks, but at the same time, when we talk about capacity, not just capacity of students, but capacity of the ability to function at a high level based on its size and location, it's something we are continuing to look at with a close eye. Because we want to make sure that those kids are successful, but there may come a point where we're going to look at possibly a different structure specifically at that school. And we've shared that before, but based on the numbers that continue to increase that it may provide an opportunity for us to do so. So just wanted to put that out there.
And I'll just add, when we look at that data, I think and maybe South Central Planning might have this other than us eyeballing it. I think when you eyeball the West Bank and see what available residential property what property is available to build a residential subdivision on, there's quite a few in this attendance zone, right? I mean, Bayou Gosh certainly has some property, don't be wrong, but your Mimosas really, Willowdale, Willow Ridge, you don't have a lot, but you look along that corridor, typically it's a better flood zone, I mean, all those reasons, but if we're gonna look at anything, I think big picture, we consider that, so you're not fixing it again in a few years.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing it out there as a long.
Well, this is
down the
unique
road.
because this particular subdivision is in the attendance zone where, there are only, I think, 2 schools this year that saw an increase in enrollment relative to the overall. And obviously, if we project on a low end of adding 30 or 40 kids on top of pre-K, Luling would have our highest capacity.
Yes.
So that presents challenges. So just something that
That's why
we're going to continue to look at.
That's why I brought it up.
We also, also just as we reviewed the plans, looking to see what, I mentioned this already, what in the infrastructure, might be something that affects the school board with this. They are planning to accommodate for school buses with stub outs, turnarounds included, and also we identified some sidewalks in the plan as well. So one of the recommendations that we would say as this progresses is monitor those enrollment trends, particularly because this will be a phased build. We should be regularly assessing the enrollment numbers, particularly at Luling Elementary, just to ensure that we have adequate capacity, ensure that if that first phase comes on and our projections are lower than what we're thinking they're going to be, you might need to accelerate some of those considerations. Continue to collaborate with the Public Works, and knowing that John sits on that planning commission over there to make sure those infrastructure accommodations are going to be made to make sure that you can get your school buses in and out and that your kids can walk to the bus stops safely. And then just things that y'all have been doing. If those trends go up a little bit higher, or if, as that capacity at Luling or any other school gets a little closer, you're going to want to consider either rezoning or capacity planning on how you're going to address that. Here's my contact information if you need to get in touch with me, and oh, I didn't click it. Yep, sorry. Yeah, and other than that, do you have any questions for me?
And we also want to share with you that enrollment interactive tracker map, and then we'll have another follow-up piece after that. But if no questions, Mr. Manning will share this piece with us.
Mr. Rum, can we bring up Ms. Babin as
You
he's
want to bring
doing
it up?
that?
Right? Okay.
So,
So,
Oh, yeah, I'm looking at
yeah.
that.
As they get set up, you know, this,
Yeah, I'll go over there.
obviously, the projections dealt with the Luling, R.K. Smith, Monville High School feeder system, but also the mention was that we are obviously moving the four-year-old programs over to site-based. With that being said, there's some changes to East Bank Head Start that need to be considered, and Ms. Angel Babin's here to share some considerations with us.
Okay, good afternoon. Our pre-K expansion team is proposing consistency in the naming of our sites and for the services that are provided for our 3-year-old students, so that way we can be consistent as we're moving forward. And the proposal would be to remove Head Start from the actual title of the East Bank building. So we're asking for consideration from the board in renaming East Bank Head Start to East Bank Early Learning Center. You'll see the consistency with Carver Early Learning Center there, just to accurately reflect the services that are going to be provided in those facilities. And in order to do so, the naming of facilities, there is a policy, so 3.8.4F is the one that speaks to naming the facilities, and this would be specifically that the board, if you choose to go in this direction, that would be then directing Dr. Orling to create a task force for consideration of the naming proposal. So we're presenting this idea with you at this time because as things are moving since our board retreat in the summer, we have been having regular meetings regarding staffing and regarding the facilities and buses, and just trying to make sure that we're getting in front of this before applications are released in early February. We want to make sure that the naming of the facilities would be reflective of what's actually going to be the names of the facilities children will be attending. So that is our ask at this time, if that is of interest to the board to move forward with that.
So basically, per policy, we cannot change the name of any building until we follow policy 3.8.
0.4F.
Which would direct the board to direct me to put together a committee, and then they consider, and then there's specific protocol relative to community members, so on and so forth, that would be put together. That committee would make a recommendation on what the name would be. Of course, we're proposing this, but we can't jump ahead of that. Same time, we want it to be similar, but obviously it would be the committee that would help make the recommendation for that. So we're just seeking permission from the board, or indirectly asking you to direct us
Yes.
to follow policy. Okay.
But please direct you to evaluate the policy, the naming of per policy, whatever.
Thank you.
There you go.
All right.
And
Thank
more
you very
information to
much.
follow by Ms. Babin and the team.
Absolutely. Okay, thank y'all
you.
very much.
You ready?
Okay, so I've got the map pulled up. And this is a link that you can host on your website or do whatever, however you want to use this link. It's publicly available. And you have a few different options. You can zoom in, say you know exactly where your house is and you want to zoom in and you want to go and find your address, and you can, click on your address and you can see what your school district would be. So this particular school district is Zone 5, which includes Luling, R.K. Smith, and Hanville High School. Or you can go in and actually type in. You can use your current location if you have location installed. So if you're on your cell phone or something, you can use your current location and you can allow it. And if all your systems are set up, and I'm not going to go through all that because I don't want to mess up your computer, but you can go through that and it'll actually find where you are physically standing, and it will give you your school information. Or if you type in your address, what's the address to this building?
Central office is one. Okay, there you go. There you go. I was gonna give you central office.
727.
Yeah.
Highway 90. Highway 90, Louisiana, Louisiana, and it'll tell you exactly. I guess it's just it's not finding the exact address, but it's looking and it's geocoding and it knows it's somewhere in this area. So it does default, to the general zip code, I think, if it doesn't find the exact address. Yeah, you can put in, I'll look at this address just for fun. So 221 Monsanto Avenue, Luling. Yep. So it'll find your, okay, that's what it was. So that gray point was where we were. So it goes and finds that gray point. And you're going to want to verify, so you can zoom in and look on the aerial. And we have the address points directly from the parish. So you can see it, verify that that address point is indeed on top of that house. So if you're assisting someone and you're not in front of them, but they're asking what school district they're in, you can verify that that dot is indeed on top of that address before you tell them what it is, or they can type it in themselves and you just direct them to the location. All right, it's pretty straightforward. Any questions on this?
I do want to share a few things before questions, Mr. Manning. Mr. Oquan pointed out, and I'm glad he noticed that, so I wouldn't fail to mention it. There are some things in there, such as Magnolia Ridge, that kind of shows that dividing line. Mr. Oquan astutely pointed out that we made some revisions there. Mr. Manning pointed out to me in preparation for this that the board actually has to go ahead. We're going to have to do a resolution to make all of our changes, I guess, per code or per federal requirements. So we're going to have to come to the board in the near future with a resolution to officially adopt all of those little minor changes. And at that point in time, after that, we can make the adjustments to this. This won't go live until that point in time. We've already spoken with Ms. McMillan in the Public Information Department. They had some good ideas about linking it directly to our website. That way parents can go straight to it, and they might not even have to make that call to the secretary or to enrollment or staff within the district. So we've got a couple of steps to follow up on. One, to clean that up via resolution. Then we can make the final adjustments to this, and then start making plans to promote it and put it in its proper locations where people can access that. So beyond that, just any other questions that you may have in that regard.
And what we did with those descriptions is we took what you had provided us, and they were very, very vague. And what I did was the same thing I would do like when we would write the legal descriptions for your school board districts seats. I start at usually the northwesternmost polygon and just work my way clockwise and describe what that physical feature is. So it'll say we're along with the parish boundary to the Mississippi River, goes on the Mississippi River to parish boundary, et cetera, et cetera. So whatever those physical features are, that's what I tended to use. I think that'd be a lot easier to read and to try to interpret than what you had before. And the map should be a big help with that also.
Like it, yep.
And Ms. Smith, could we incorporate a link, y'all talk about that, perhaps incorporating this link to?
Absolutely, yes.
To their website that y'all offer.
Great. So yes, so it looks like our next steps in regard to the enrollment pieces, and Mr. Oquan pointed out, we need to make sure we clean everything up in regards to Magnolia Ridge and those small changes. We'll have to bring a resolution to the board to accept all those. We'll get the interactive map corrected and ready to go, and then get it to those different avenues or outlets for our staff and community use. So, well, thank you, Mr. Banner. Appreciate it.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you. Good seeing you.
All right, go ahead next.
Okay, next agenda item is the AT&T cell tower lease exploration. Mr. Rome?
Yes, yes, sir. You see there's a folder in the board retreat document that links to 3 different attachments or documents. One of them is AT&T cell tower lease exploration one-pager. This is a bit of a summary if you want to look to that. I believe, yes, Ms. Hegel has it up on the screen as well, but it's in your file. Okay, so this has kind of been a long time in the plan and in the works, right? From Safe Schools audits that Mr. Vanette, Mr. Rogers participated in, to Mr. Gregson's experience in calls, as probably many other board members had in the community about cell communications in the area. I mean, it's the elephant in the room. We knew we had a problem there. We've tried to address it in any way, the school system, through repeaters, through multiple cell carriers, things of that nature. But the area is just a challenge. It's a bit of a dead zone when you come to the cell towers. And at some point in time, with the impetus provided by Mr. Gregson and others, we did write a letter to all the major carriers expressing our concern. Ms. Hegel was involved, Mr. Vanette was involved, myself, to really push for them to come up with some solutions. So it's what came first, the chicken and the egg. Were they always looking at this or not? I'm thinking they probably were, but we're going to give ourselves the credit for it. Our letter did the trick, and they, just out of the blue one day, I received the email, said, hey, we want to look at this area for a cell tower. We're like, great, we want you to as well. So, obviously, we had those initial conversations with AT&T to try to understand, what they wanted to do, what's the process, so forth and so on. At that point in time, when we engaged with them, we said, well, this is certainly something for us to consider, but it's a board consideration. So that's just what we did. We went on a bit of a fact-finding mission and gathering information just to introduce it to the board to see if we want to pursue this option. So I want to provide a little bit of information, ask any questions there, and then kind of the end ask is, do we want to pursue this potential lease option? So you see on the one pager before you there some of the very questions I had for them that you may be interested in. I know a board member not in attendance actually reviewed this and had some questions about a few things, so there will be follow-up to that by us with the AT&T representative that we're engaging in. But here's some general information from how long, till we say, can we give you a decision? Yes, we want to engage on talks on this, to what's the area, to what about safety in regards to cell towers. Obviously, we have them. They're obviously spread out throughout the nation and our parish already, but what is the actual impact in an area? So there's a whole bunch of data in regards to that you can see. And then you can see just some of the other questions that were posed at the time, and we're going to have plenty more. And that's just the first document. I want to direct your attention to the other ones as well. Particularly the second one, I'd like to share the map with you and then kind of go over a few of the minor details of the potential lease if we were to go in that direction, and then open it up to any questions. So that second attachment is a PDF, AT&T cell tower lease exploration map, and it's just simply that. It's a map. On the Ms. Hegel's. No, ma'am. It's in that folder. It's yeah. It's yes, ma'am. You got it. So just for those that may have a few geographical challenges, what we're looking at is kind of going from top down. Top, you're coming from Highway 90 direction, getting down Louisiana Street to Barber Street, where you see the blue outline. That's where you get into J.B. Martin and R.J. Vial's campus. If you look at the bottom left-hand corner, you see outline in red. That would be the most highly anticipated and desired potential location, but it could be anywhere within that zone that is yellow. So this is just preliminary. This is them just doing kind of initial surveying and thinking what would be a good location for this tower. I like it when I see it because it's in obviously the furthest corner away from the school facility in the backfields, which recreation used to utilize for soccer, but they've moved those operations to Ashton, as you know. So I don't want to say it's a dead space, but there is a buffer zone between our normal daily activities and where this proposed location could be. So just want to kind of orient everybody and let them know where if we were to move forward with the lease and they decide to select us for a site, that would be the proposed location. So if you don't mind, I'll turn your attention to the third attachment, and that is the actual potential lease itself. Basically, what I asked them, I said, obviously you've engaged in this with other entities before. Can you send me a sample of what a lease might look like? And it has, like many leases, a lot of legalese in there. Obviously, if we move forward in any capacity, we would have our risk management department and legal review it extensively. But just some of the highlights on it, basically, you go through kind of a exploratory period to where they see if it's viable, and they pay you a little bit of money up front just to do that exploration. They would want to have the rights to go back there and do geotechnical and surveying and things like that, just like we would if we were to propose any type of structure. You've got to do the engineering behind it. And they do their viability analysis to see if it still makes sense for them. At that point in time, if they decide to engage, it is a profitable or a meaningful location to them. If they want to engage in a lease with us, then we start that process, and it's a 5-year term period that really extends out almost to 100 years. It's 17, potential renewals of that. And there's a lot of language in there about how you can terminate and such. Like I said, we would have to have risk management and legal review that, but do want to point out that they would be paying for the lease. Besides the benefit of the increased cell communications in the area, this is just a potential starting point. They have a number in there, I believe, of $850 a month for that whole period. And at the end of each 5-year period, when it's renewed, there's a 10% escalator in there. You see that's common, whether it be, due to inflation or things of that nature. But that's an escalator as time goes on. And I don't know if she should have told, if the representative should have told me this or not, but they said that's a negotiating point. That doesn't mean that's the number. We could propose a different number to that. So, the $850 is the floor of that monthly potential income from a structure such as this and that lease. So that would all be hashed out way further down the line. So in kind of just in synopsis of all that, and I'd see if there's any questions and see, what direction the board would like to move forward in. But basically, we're at the point where they are strongly considering the site. They want to continue with their exploratory of it. If they found it to be a viable site, then at that point in time, they would pursue a potential lease with us, and we'd get in that whole process, and of course, have to bring that to the board for consideration and approval. So the point we're at is just seeking, some direction from the board. Are y'all okay with us pursuing the exploratory phase?
I'll say that y'all do take credit, and if you're not taking credit, I'm giving you credit.
We'll take it.
But because look, if I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think Dustin did y'all. So something I forget what it was that somebody wasn't able to get a phone call out, and whatever happened, and we reached out, and long story short, I ran into somebody that from Chevron, and I was like, hey, do you something about a cell tower? And she's like, oh yeah, our person was in the middle of the property, had to go all the way to Bayou Gosh Road, and it was like within a week of me asking this question. I think AT&T might have been the only one to respond, at least around that time, and actually engage back. So if I remember correctly, and so yeah, and as a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, isn't there to give you an idea, it's an AT&T tower right across 90. You can actually look it on if you look up the maps.
There's nothing. I always ask that question too, because there's nothing on the tower itself.
Well, because I remember the guy said something like there's a tower across the street, but then they had to go look at it. But you're right, there is nothing on it.
No, there's nothing. There's the infrastructure for it. Because I've always asked that question too. There's infrastructure, but there's nothing on it.
Yeah, because I remember saying across 90, I'm like, well, that tower's not projected very well. So anyway.
We did walkthroughs with AT&T as well for the redundant internet, and they had to see how far away from campuses they could get before their 5G was actually acceptable, and they had to walk out past the ditch in order to see that. So I said, so you're going to get me extensions out to the ditch? And then 3 days later, Johnny got the email from AT&T. So I think it's probably
Perfect storm of everything.
all 3 of us that we continue to put them on the radar, because it was just we had our representative from all our AT&T services, and he walked through JB and RJ, and he was like, how am I supposed to call? I don't know, you tell me, how am I supposed to call?
We hung and the letter was, they hung their hat on safety, right? I mean, hang your hat on safety, and you typically win, and so.
So we'll appreciate that, and appreciate the nudge by everybody, and like I said, squeaky wheel gets the grease, and maybe we squeaked enough. But, it could be a potential win-win, some income to a piece of property that we really do not utilize, but also increase in safety and communication areas. So if I understand correctly, the board's authorized us to engage in the exploratory phase.
And at least they normally include a CPI component too.
Oh, as far as the escalator piece? Yeah, I'm glad they put that in there.
I think the only thing on the FAQs, I'm not concerned about this, I'm just potentially from public information. You always have somebody in the crowd that's gonna, and I just Googled it, some safety thing. Just, you know what I mean?
And just like industry
got
and
time to look
other
all that.
people that propose these things, that they are familiar with the
Harvard,
process.
blah, blah,
They are open, if it need be, to have a conversation with whoever it would be, if it be a public forum or not. But that would be later down the line, but, this is what they do, so they're kind of familiar with that whole process, if there's any misinformation or concerns that need to be shared.
That's the helpful stuff, right?
Okay.
How long does it take when you, after giving or signing off on that?
I don't have that exact answer as part of the exploratory report, because they've got to line up the geotechnical, they got to do that, I'm sure, to make sure the soil's stable, the infrastructure, the cost, then they compare it versus others. But once we engage with them at that, I will inquire about that, if they can just give me any kind of projection on it. Yep.
Thank you, appreciate you.
Thank you, Mr. Ron. Okay, as Ms. McMillan comes forward, we provided information relative to our communication audit review previously. Ms. McMillan has provided some of that information to the board. This is part of the board's long-range strategic action plan in order to really look at how we are communicating, what are our different touch points when it comes to reaching our stakeholders. We've already implemented some of the recommendations based on this communications audit, but Ms. McMillan wanted to make sure that we provide an opportunity to thoroughly go through it and present it to the board, so I'll turn it over to Ms. McMillan.
Thank you, Dr. Ortling, and just want to say thank you to the board. I know, as he said, this was part of our long-range strategic action plan and setting up some research and data points to guide our future planning, and it was very thorough. We got a lot of great information. Each one of you was presented today with an actual final copy of the report. It is also digitally available for you in Board Docs, but here with us today is our auditor, Mr. Tim Carroll from the National School Public Relations Association. He's going to present to you an overall general review of the findings from the audit, including recommendations for improvement. So, checking to see, let's see, he said he's logged on. In the Google Meet.
Yeah, I hate to take things like that, so.
No.
Hell no. Don't even look like.
Good afternoon, Mr. Carroll. Can you hear us?
Hello, can folks hear me?
Yes, sir, we certainly can.
Whatever.
Gina, can we hear me in the room?
Yes. Can you hear us?
Okay. We ready to start, Dr. Rowan?
Yes, sir. Can you hear us?
Sorry.
You good? You can hear us?
I can hear you now. Yeah,
Okay.
I can hear you a second.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Thank you.
You ready to roll?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, Mr. Carroll. Thank you for joining us.
Fine, thank you. Well, to members of the board and Dr. Ortling and Regina, I want to thank you on behalf of the National School PR Association just for the opportunity to present the findings of this report, and of course to contract with the association for the report in the first place. I enjoyed visiting the school district. I was there back in April. I had the opportunity to meet with some of you when I was there. And on my way out to the airport the last day, I also drove your school district and drove around a lot of your neighborhoods and stuff, got a much better feel for it. I do know that it's Friday, and this is the last topic of the day on Friday board workshop. And if you're like anything else that we do here in Texas, you have a football game coming up in about 3 or 4 hours. And so I will not take up any more of your time than is necessary. And I'll certainly stick around for questions as needed, but I'll try to keep things on time for you. The last comment I just want to make is that I really want to thank Regina and Stacy for all the work they did in setting up the audit and everything from donuts at the meetings to just making sure people got where they needed to be and everything else. So thank you, Regina. Please share that with Stacy when you get a chance. So
She's-
I'm gonna
she's
turn
actually
the
here.
screen over to a PowerPoint presentation right now, which will mirror the audit report that you should already have a copy of. So I'm not sure if I will be on the screen anymore, but more importantly, the audit report will be. So just a minute here, and we'll go to this and see what we get here. Okay. Now. Can you see this presentation?
Yes.
Oh, perfect, okay, so I want to make sure. Okay, so I'm going to run through the early part of this presentation rather quickly so we get to some of the meat in it and keep on time as well. But obviously, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Tim Carroll. I'm the person that conducted the audit. I'm adjunct faculty right now at TCU, but more importantly, I spent 39 years in a role very similar to Regina's, and I've been doing auditing for about 11 years. So some background on this. There's a team of people that worked on this audit. I won't go through all those names, they're in the report as well. Chris Fuller at the bottom is an assistant who joined me when we came out for the audit. And so that's the fellow who was with me, and the other women were the people who were working with Regina and I in the background. It's an agenda. I won't read you the agenda. It's kind of redundant, but the agenda was followed through the same order as the report. So we'll go through that in that sort of order. For those of you that aren't too familiar with the process, communications audit is not much different than a curriculum audit or a financial audit. It's just an assessment of what communications efforts are going on and then how effective the things that are happening. So are there things we're doing that could be changed, or are there things we're doing that maybe are no longer necessary, or are there things we're doing that are working? All those things fit into this. We take a snapshot of current perceptions. We talked to a lot of people when I was there. A lot of community surveys, but I also had the opportunity to speak with focus groups. We'll see more about that in a minute. And it also gives you baseline research. You had an audit done, I believe, I'm not sure the year on that, but you did have a previous NSPR audit done, and it doesn't hurt to have one every, now and then, not too frequently, but just to follow up, especially if you have changes in leadership over the years. There's 4 parts to an audit that I was involved with. First one is we did a survey of your community in March 2025. We sent surveys out to about 63,000 participants, about 5% margin of error on that, and I have for parents and employees, the community survey was a little bit off, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But then we looked at district materials. We had print, digital, you know what district materials are because you're receiving them there, I'm sure. And then more importantly, I had focus groups. I spent several days on site, met with parents, employees, community and business representatives, some of the board members that are there. And also at the same time, I had the opportunity to have more in-depth interviews with Dr. Ortling and Regina and her staff as well. I talked to her entire staff, as a matter of fact. So it's a good opportunity for me to really get some good background before I started with all the other work. So the first thing we did was a survey. The survey results were very positive. We all like to see positive results. We see surveys, but these were very good results, and I'll talk a little bit about them, not too much, but you just need to know that the support and the confidence the community has in the school district and the school board and leadership is, I won't say it's unusual because there are other school districts like that, but it's not typical of a lot of the school districts that we come across, especially with audits. So we had 9,100 parents and families. We had about 540 people respond, so that was within range. We had 368 employees respond, which was also within range. The community only had 64 responses, and so we worked pretty hard at that. We even encouraged, and Regina did double down and go back and republicize and everything else. But we didn't get a lot of response from that, but we did get some good feedback from focus groups. I will say that the results of the survey there are not quite as accurate probably as the others. So this is what I call observations. These are things that I found in looking at all this material. Some common themes. The first one was that the district is widely recognized as the premier school district. You probably know that, you hear that. But it's also supported by performance. And sometimes, everybody has a campaign. We're doing the best, or we're number one or something like that. We're striving for excellence. But you have the numbers to back it up, which says a whole lot more. And so I found that to be true, not just what people were saying, but also what the results are. District sees high ratings from third-party evaluators, which is important when you talk about how people form opinions, especially when people are shopping communities and looking for places to plant their flags, so to speak. They're looking at these kinds of outside evaluations. So obviously Department of Ed numbers, but also the niche.com, which is a pretty accurate It's become much more accurate in more recent years with the data that they're using. And then based on the surveys, you're highly rated by the parents, staff, and the community based on scope, which is our survey, and focus groups. So people are speaking very highly of it, they like the school district, and they like the results they're seeing from it. Here's one of the, I'm not going to go through all the slides of the survey, but here's an interesting slide. Even if you can't see, I don't know how close you are to the screen, but even if you can't see much of it, the important thing is, the top of the screen says excellent or above average, and then the second one is average, and the one is below average. And so clearly, when you talk about perception of the district, high 80s, mid high 80s for everybody, that's pretty important. So I think that's worth noting. Okay. Some other themes then, we're going to go through some more of these. The district plays an important and historic role in uniting diverse communities. Once again, I'm talking to the choir here, you know this already, but it's part of your culture, is that you have a school district that's made up of different communities. It's not one town, the downtown area or something like that. So you have a little bit different challenge in bringing those communities together, and to be honest with you, your school district is what ties them together. Most people have that one thing in common, if they live in totally different communities across the river or different places. School board and the superintendent are perceived as approachable and transparent in their roles. That is not always the case. As a matter of fact, it's very common where people are a little bit distrustful of the leadership, or they feel like they're not being heard, or decisions are being made without them. That didn't seem to be the case in talking to people and also in the survey. And then the communications from the board, leadership, and communications officer trusted. People were actually asking to trust the information you're getting, and the answer was yes. And here's a survey slide. We have this whole separate survey information. This one here is a very simple question. I trust the communication I receive. And 85, 83, and 65, and inevitably the community is going to be a little less trustful. But remember, the community results are also much, much smaller. Only 60 people responded. So those first two numbers especially are, in my opinion, a real compliment. Some other things that come out from it, stakeholders acknowledge the district's strong reputation, but they lack understanding of why the district succeeds. And we try to push a little further than just say, we like it here, it's a good school district. The follow-up question is why is it a good school district? And we get a lot of different answers, but there was no consistency, and a lot of people didn't know. I just know it's a good district, my kids went here, or I hear it's a good school district, those kind of things. So that's kind of a tag we put on it. We did some work with later in the recommendations. Perception came out from staff and also from parents, I would say all of them, but enough of them, that the district's emphasis is more about awards and recognition, and that doesn't take away from the fact that you win a lot of awards and recognition, but you get caught up in the swirl of acknowledging all of those, and then people who aren't getting those awards and recognition may be a little less inclined to say that it's about them. So that's just something that came through in surveys and in a little bit of focus groups. And then the last one here, the district really does have good print, video, and online resources. The very first time I saw them, I was impressed, and after looking closely at them, doing a good job on the content you're sending out. What seemed to be missing is kind of a clear marketing or outreach strategy to target prospective parents and businesses. So since you've got a little bit of a dip in enrollment, and you're certainly not growing, but you certainly have an interest in attracting more students, probably need to turn the switch a little bit more towards marketing the school district and trying to let people know where you're at and what you're doing. And I'll give you some examples of that later, but this is an observation from the outside. We do a SWOT analysis as part of this. Obviously, I'm not going to read all those little things to you, but let me give you a couple of highlights. Strengths, one is stability of leadership. You've got long-standing board members, superintendent, well-recognized in the community. Public information staff is a strength. They're doing a good job in winning awards. You have your school communicator of the year right there in front of you. But good job there. Weaknesses, there's an overlap in conflicting message of the central office and the staff. We heard this from your administrative leadership, your campus leadership, and then also from staff. They get a message from one place and a message from another that conflicts that or doesn't give enough information. There seems to be a lot of that. That's not uncommon, but it's something that came out, so it's worth mentioning. There's a school liaison program where you have people who are on the campuses, and those people on the campuses are out feeding information back to Regina and doing some other things as well. And some campuses are doing a great job at that, some campuses are not, and so that program is inconsistent, so it needs a little bit more structure or a little bit more oversight to bring that back in line, based on my observation. Business and industry support from the school district is a great opportunity, of course. You can't miss that in your community, the way things work. But the district can always even do more, I think, to work with those communities. I don't know enough about what you're doing. I didn't really look into that too much, but I'm confident you're doing a lot, so that may be already there. The opportunities, generational support for the district and the history. I ran into a lot of people who went to school there, or their parents went to school there, and they had every intention of sending their kids to school if they weren't already. And so that says something about it too. It's not as fluid of a community, whereas I live, for example, in a Dallas suburb, and people are coming and going all the time. There's a lot of people that own your community and are loyal to it years after they graduate from school. That's a good group for you to have for support for various reasons. Some threats, I think one of them is ongoing enrollment decline, which is happening. It's happening here too. I'm in a high-growth school district where I worked in Texas, and they just closed 2 schools, which is stunning because they were growing just 5, 6 years ago. So it's a trend I think nationwide, especially in our area of yours too, probably. And then there's kind of a misperception that I picked up on people of the affluence of the district. They kind of have an impression that, well, that district's, they're an affluent district. They've got a lot of money. They can do whatever they want. They build a performing arts center. They can do those kind of things. And of course, the reality is it's not the reality. You have a large economically disadvantaged student population, and you're not, by far, not the richest school district in the state of Louisiana. But perception of that is enough to cause you irritation, I guess, for lack of a better word, because you get into a situation where you're working on a bond lecture or something like that, and they think, well, you got that money, or Shell Oil can take care of that for us, or something like that. It's just, we all know it's just not that simple, but the simple patrons it may be. So I'm going to talk about the recommendations now. Am I going too fast, by the way?
No, sir.
No, sir, keep rolling.
You're good.
I'm not going too fast, okay. I'll get you there before the kickoff, don't worry. All right, so here's our recommendations. I won't read these recommendations to you. I'll give you themes, and then we're going to go through each of the recommendations. The first one, the theme of the first one was about the department itself. The second one was about strategic planning. The third one was about branding and marketing for the school district. The fourth one is making connections with the broader community. The fifth one is focusing on the history and local pride in the community, internal communications, school board communications, and then digital communications. So those are the 8 recommendations. We had other things, and we tied a lot of them together in this to go for convenience for you. It's pointless to have 20 recommendations or something like this. We try to bring it down to something workable for you. So the first recommendation, evaluate roles and expand capacity in departments. We looked at how the department works and how things are going there, and really what we did here is we kind of looked at how do people use their time, what is it they're working on, and are things they're working on maybe effective or ineffective. And the quality of the work is fine, so that was never an issue. It's more a question of, if you're doing this, could you be doing this instead? So Regina and I have a lot of conversations about that. And so we talked about, how is your secretary being used, how is the receptionist being used, they're all part of the bigger department. And so I think we came up with some good ideas for that. That's what this recommendation was about. The second part of this was to realign the roles and strengthen the capacity of the department. And the first thing on there was to recommend that bringing in, if you had budget for it, bringing in a community outreach coordinator, someone to handle a lot of the outreach stuff that you're doing. And as I understand it, you've already done that. And so I've got that check mark on my list here. You did that over the summer. And so that's excellent, because that gives the whole staff a little bit of breathing room to take care of some other things we're going to talk about. But that was the whole idea, was to look at the responsibilities of the staff on this one and say, are there things that the staff could be doing, or the things they're doing, maybe we can readjust to somebody else. So that's really the key, is to move them to different locations. Okay, the second recommendation refers to district goals and strategic communication planning. You all understand strategic planning, because you have strategic planning for the district and in your businesses and where you work probably. The department itself needs something like that. It doesn't have to be as formal as that, but we kind of use a model of a lesson plan. A good example, if I'm a teacher, I'm a lesson plan. If I want to take, we're going to carry out some activity in the classroom, the question should be from that person's principal or supervisor, something like that. As a result of that lesson, what do you want to occur? The same thing should happen in the communications department. If you're doing an internal newsletter, what is your purpose of that? If the answer is to communicate, it needs to be better than that. It needs to be, our goal is to get more employees involved in this or that or whatever. There's a lot of different things to do. So a good communications program to the next level, and when I talked to Dr. Oracle when we first started this process, we both kind of came to agreement, you're doing a lot of stuff already, so if you want to take it to the next level, this is the next level stuff right here. So to ask yourself, why are we doing what we're doing, and do we need to keep doing some of these things? So in simple terms, what this recommendation asks is to bring the staff together, create a plan that identifies what the district's goals are, and then try to tie this strategic plan of the department to your district goals. So when we look at the things you're doing with the four-step PR planning process, we take the four-step planning process here, but we try to tie it to your action items and your goals with the district as well. So it all kind of helps, it actually ultimately helps you and helps the management of the district move down the line a little bit. There's a planning process for that, which we all learn in PR college, right, Regina? And so I won't go through all that, but the research planning and all those kind of things, but I'll show you a little bit more. The third one is to align with the district goals with strategic communication and apply that planning model. So then you ask yourself, what do we want to accomplish and how can we best do that? And by saying what do we want to accomplish, we look at the district goals and say, I'm going to make this up, but if the district goal was reading, let's say the district was struggling in reading, and you're in the communications department, the question would be, how can communications department support instruction and support the curriculum department in their push for reading? And maybe it would be something as simple as helping them produce a video or taking video of people reading books online. I'm not going to go into all that, but you see where I'm going with that is that they take something which is important to the district and then say, how can we, with our skill set, which is different than most other people's, apply that? So that's kind of the goal of that. The only item that popped up in the communications survey where people were a little bit like, well, don't know as much about this, and I definitely don't want to make this seem as bad because it's still good, but about 24% of the people said they felt well informed about finances, district finances, and on all the other items it was much higher than that. And so if nothing else, it stood out a little bit. And so probably the district would focus somewhat on how they're communicating their finances to the community. And it's not so much are you communicating, maybe it's you're not communicating it the right way. I don't know exactly what the background of that is, but school finance is hard to explain. It's, we all in the business have trouble with it, but imagine lay people. So there's a lot of different strategies that people are using around the schools around the country. And I put all those samples in that report of just, here's how we're presenting school finance. Here's how we're doing it. A lot of infographics, a lot of 1-minute videos, finance fact sheets, a lot of different things. This is the kind of thing where we help you if you have another bond referendum, which we always do at some point in the business. It may not be soon, but the next one, rather than wait until the next bond referendum, we come out and say, now here's how school finance works, and here's why we need what we need. It's a really good opportunity to ease into that whole education level with finance stuff without having to ask at the end of it. If that makes sense. That was going to be kind of helpful. So there's some ways to look at that. That's what that means there. It's not that you're doing it wrong in the district, but if there's an area that you want to look at and maybe put some more meat into, that would probably be one for you. Next recommendation is the brand of the school district. And marketing is a term that seems to be a little bit out of place for public schools, but it's not, these days, it's not totally out of place for public schools, especially in states like yours and ours, where they're opening up the door to open enrollment. I forget what yours is called, ESA or something like that. I think in Texas got something else. One of the things that I found when I looked at the district from the outside, that's what I'm doing, is I couldn't quite put my hand on what the district's thing was. And I mean, what is your thing? Our thing is every student will graduate and be successful. Our student says, we have a lot of those kinds of lines and a lot of those things in our strategic plan. When you try to melt it down to something simple, we found that there were multiple things the school district was using at the same time, which kind of confuses your audience. And so you had the district profile, the AAA, the Expect Excellence theme, then you've got you and I, we are. So all those things are good, but they compete with each other sometimes. And so if we're going to look at a more formal marketing strategy or something like that, you look ahead and say, what is it we really want to tell people, and then how do we go after doing that? And in the audit, the stakeholders, meaning the people we talk to, we ask them, we said, what is the district known for? What is it that's good about the district? We have a lot of, it's a great place to live. We have great teachers, we have the best teachers. Kids are successful. We have a good football program. We have all sorts of things. But rarely did we get people that just said, academically, this place is really there. Like we send our kids to school here, and they graduate, and they're right where they should be when they graduate high school. And people think that. I don't, even your principals, the same thing happened to them. They think that way, but they don't say it. Instead, they were saying, we have really good teachers, and this is a district where people care about kids and those kind of things, which are all true. But can we nail that down more? That's what the whole concept of this recommendation is. So, if that makes sense. Okay, now number 4, this is more about community outreach and public engagement. And so we encourage always the district to keep public engagement at the top of their list, seek opportunities where they're not required. We talked about that already with elections and things like that. And then clarify the purpose of engagement. If you're gonna have some sort of community events, let people know this is what we're doing, and maybe limit those things down to topics, rather than say we're gonna have a coffee with the superintendent, or we're gonna have a town hall or something like that. Say, we're gonna have a town hall, we're gonna talk about this, whatever this might be. Maybe it's just gonna be something as specific as social media impact on kids, or it could be something much broader than that, about graduation profile and kind of the bigger issues you all talk about. But either way, public engagement activities are something that I know you support. You're already doing a lot of them, but that's something we recommend you continue to do and look at some other areas. The second thing is, if you don't have it already, and I don't think you do, but you might consider starting what they call Leadership Academy. Leadership Academy meets once a month during the school year, so it meets about 7 times, probably without the holidays in the middle there, probably 6 or 7 times. Pick a different topic each month. It's usually about a little more than half a day, and they'll do finance, and then they'll do operations, and do curriculum, and we'll visit an elementary school. And you work your way through the whole thing with about 20 people, 20, 25 people at the most, no more than that, becomes unmanageable. And then those people become like super communicators or super fans, for lack of a better, most of them do anyway. And it really is an effective tool. After 2 or 3 years, you've got 50 to 100 people who you can call on for volunteer positions. We need an opening on such and such committee or something like that. So that's something, it's a really effective program. It doesn't have to be run by the public relations department. It could be communications, it could be run by anybody, but it's been very effective. We did it in the school district I was in. I've seen it in many others. And people are always pleased with the results, and parents and community people love it because they volunteer for it. So they're all about it. We're going to talk about taking messages on the road. You're already doing that. Dr. Ortling's already out giving presentations and everything else. So maybe just look at the presentations you're doing and be a little bit more personal. Say, this spring we're going to do this, and I want to visit 10 places, or I want to visit, not so much every elementary school, but every zone or something like that. And then come up with a real road show, for lack of a better word, that really informs people and gives them some quick information, video and visuals and everything else. You're doing it already, maybe just looking more at how you're doing that. Same thing with listening sessions. The board, I don't know exactly how your board is structured, but I know your board has open forum, places where people can comment. But what they don't probably have is a time where they can just come and talk about anything with board members. And I know you have all sorts of structure about whether you have a formal board meeting or informal or not, whether it's going to be a call meeting. But if you look at an opportunity to have listening session of some kind, it's possible. These days, politically, as we know, we watch television and everything else, listening sessions and town hall meetings almost sound like a very uncomfortable idea. So I don't know about as much public education, but that would certainly be your call on something like that. I don't know. Number 5. This is one of my favorites because I always enjoy this, but you've got a lot of history there. And so I recommend that you look at some type of alumni program, either an alumni program that coordinates the efforts from both high schools, or separate programs at the high schools. It's hard to get people from Destrehan, for example, to buy into Hanville Destrehan Alumni Association. They just don't see that way. People that graduate from your high school see their high school as the place they went to school. And so that would be a decision you have to make, but we don't need to go into here. But alumni programs are still very helpful. Tying them into sports and athletics is fine. It's actually a very helpful, fun thing to do. I didn't find much on the school district's history when I was there. There is a lot of stuff on school districts, but I didn't find the school district owning much of it. And so I would recommend that at some point, the school district take a close look at what the history of the community, the history of the schools, that kind of stuff. There's ways to celebrate that. There's a whole 2 sections in the audit about how to do that, how to engage people. But bringing the history of the school district is an excellent way to connect with the older folks in the community, as well as people who are moving in just want to know, what is all this? Because again, you have kind of an unusual community, different towns and everything else. It's a good opportunity. Senior citizens tie into that as well. Engage empty nesters and senior citizens in activities. We always recommend that. You're doing some things, but your population there is growing. It's not as big as it is in a lot of other areas, but it will be. There's no doubt about that. And then finally, I had the opportunity to speak with a focus group of non-English speaking parents that are all Hispanic parents, and they had a lot of interesting things to say. They liked the school district. The first thing I would say is every one of them said they moved there because of the school district. And so they were pleased to be there, and I'll just tell you very quickly, their concerns about communicating the district had nothing to do with the communication from Regina or from the district. Everything they talked about was about the teacher, school secretary, and them, and being able to communicate about their child. So it really got down to that. So that's an area, I put that in the report. There are some things the district can do, but it's interesting to see that they really were more concerned about, I want to be able to talk to my child's teacher, I want to be able to read the forms that come home, I want to make sure my kid goes to the functions he's supposed to go to, stuff like that. It was a really excellent group to talk to. So that's worth mentioning. Number 6, internal communication. This is where I talked to an awful lot of your staff about a lot of different things. And most of the comments are very positive, and that's not usual. Especially up north in Michigan, a place like that where you have some strong union states, it's almost unimaginable to have them say something nice about administration. But your group was very supportive of the district. They like the district. They're glad to be there. So a lot of their comments were more about communication with them from the district and between each other and those kind of things. And so I won't go into the details of this too much, but basically, for example, the second one there, or the first one, is they're saying that a lot of the communication that comes out to the staff actually gets the parents first or gets on social media first, and they hear about it because they're in class. I had one teacher say, teaching in a class, I'm getting emails from parents saying, why did they change the, whatever graduation night, not graduation, prom night or something like that. And he said, I don't even know what it is. And then after the meeting's over, after the class is over, he talks like, oh yeah, we just changed this or whatever. So teachers were asking, is there a way for us to get that information first if it's relevant to the teachers? You all know more about that than I do, but it's good observation. It came up more than once, no question about that. Same thing with secretaries. I talked to your secretary groups, and they asked the same thing. They said, we find ourselves getting calls about things we're not aware with. We don't get the call goes to the principal. The principal's busy or outside in the playground or something like that, then I don't get that information quick enough. So it's just kind of a flow of communication. Same thing down below, the improvement of flow in email, problem with email communication everywhere. And I've never not heard this comment, was somebody centralized sends an email out, someone else sends another email that contradicts that one, or they send the third one out and find out that they were blind copied, they didn't know who got the copies. There's all these different little things that happen with email. In the school district, when you have a management team of 10 or 15 people who are doing important work, and the principal's receiving communications, all of them, that can get very confusing. So that's just something to look at, and some recommendations in there for that. And then the staff newsletter, you have a staff newsletter, Insights, and it's a good newsletter, but it's not being well read. Most of the people that commented don't read it or don't have time to read it, and commented about it. I think it comes out on Fridays too, which probably may be part of the reason, but put some recommendations in there. I think my recommendation would be, don't get rid of the staff newsletter. It's very useful. I would recommend that you take a look at it and say, is there something we can do to make it a little bit more interesting and capture people more. I'm not going to go through every one of these, but one of the ones I wanted to mention is the number 8. Well, number 7, you have a communications group that meets with the superintendent, but the secretaries themselves don't meet. And I really want to emphasize that if you have the opportunity to create a communication group for your secretary, one secretary from each building or something like that, it can be very helpful to you. They're really a good group of people. They're really fun to meet with, but they're a good group of people to work with. And they want to help, they want to be part of it, but sometimes they get left out of the loop, and that's a really good way to keep them in, especially for important stuff. That last thing refers to the intranet. It's more of, Regina would understand that, but it's more of a, the intranet and people, teachers saying, I find things, I need a form for a field trip, and it's on Google Docs, and then I look for another form, and it's not on Google Docs, it's still on Blackboard or somewhere else. And so all of that transition between the different systems is teachers get caught up in because they're trying to do this between classes or something like that. So I think that's going to fix itself, if I remember the conversation, but nevertheless. 2 more items, and then we're done. School board. Had a great conversation with school board members, and the first thing I noticed when I look at school board, when I look at a school district website, is I really think that the school board should be prominent on the website. I don't mean your picture should be the first thing you see, but the name school board should be on there somewhere quickly so I can access it. Because a lot of people go to your school website, The only reason they're going there is because of some school board action. Maybe they're not happy because you're gonna change a school bus route or there's so many different things, you know. But they were going there saying, I want to write a letter to the school board. I want to know when the next school board meeting is, and that's not quickly accessible on the website. So I think that's an easy thing to fix, but I would recommend that at some point. I think the communication that the board sends out about the actions, I can't remember the name of it, it's, but just the facts. Just the facts has the information, but it's almost too detailed. If I just want to know what happened at the board meeting last night, I really want to know, did they approve X, did they do Y, are they going to move forward with this? And so almost a 2 or 3 sentence summary of each of those things in a different format might help people. We just want to know, teachers, we did something like this, and the teachers all the time tell me in the morning, I saw last night at the board meeting, this happened. They didn't watch the board meeting, they read that little board summary, which I wrote in advance of the board meeting, brought it to the board meeting with me, and then changed it as it went. If the board voted for it or against it or whatever, I adjusted, but basically, I can get the thing out in an hour after a board meeting, and people kind of know what happened. Just the facts is necessary, but it's a little bit too much detail for some people, in my opinion. So, those are some of the things, and then the school board academy is a different thing. We have a school board academy, several other places do. I'll give you some recommendations for that. If you have citizens who are interested in running for the school board or just interested in the school district itself, the school board academy is very effective. It's just 1 half day. That's all it is. It's not a year-long thing. 1 half day in whatever your filing month is. Filing month in Texas, for example, is February. So we would have a school board academy in January for people that are interested in possibly running. And be honest with you, sometimes the board, and our board presented at it, and our top leadership presented, a lot of times the goal was to show them exactly how much work it is to see if they really want to tangle with it, because a lot of people don't understand what they're getting into. And so I think that wouldn't be a bad thing, because it also gets you in visual contact with people that might be interested in board seats. And it's not a bad place for you to be sitting board members too, and in a good way, just make connection with people that are interested in the school district. All right, then, so that's that. And the last one deals with digital communications, website, social media, all those different kinds of things. It's very easy, and I did this myself. I worked in the business for 39 years, and probably 25 of those were in digital communications when all that stuff came around. And it's so easy to get into just posting everything that comes in. I'm gonna put it up, and make sure everything gets up. But we get to the point where we're putting everything up, and there's no real purpose. We're just putting it up there, almost like a bulletin board kind of thing. So we recommend a more strategic approach and look at what's going up on social media, what's going up on Instagram, for example, on the website, all those different things. And then, do we need to be putting that much effort into this? Maybe we need to do more of that kind of thing. If you go back to recommendation number 2, where we talk about messaging and branding, that ties right into this. You know, what are we telling our community about what they see on our social media? If someone says it's all about, you know, all we hear about is recognition and awards, and we go to the Instagram and there's 14 postings in a row of awards, that kind of says something. So I'm not suggesting that's what happened, but if that's what happens, then you need to go back and start looking, can we be a little more purposeful in that? Same thing with the video. You've got a really good video guy. Mason does a great job at that. Some of the video stuff you're doing is not getting the traction it could. Some of it is getting more, but that whole business is changing so much. People that watch videos are younger than they ever have been, of course. You know, it seems kind of pointless to say that, but they are. And so they're used to different kind of videos, used to shorter videos that are more impactful, a little bit more edgy and fun, maybe for lack of a better word. And so, you know, maybe we need to start looking at, we need a 5-minute video or a 10-minute video, or should we be doing 30-second, 1-minute videos? Those kind of things. But the actual content itself is good and the quality is fine. I have a lot of recommendations for the website that I won't go through here, but I do think that the website is good. I know you changed it over from one to the other. It's got some great stuff on it. There's a couple of things that Regina and I talked about, and I put them in writing, but you know, you've got a good website, got good content there. Again, there's just some things, what we call best practice in websites, which can be adjusted. The last thing that we see in here is streamlining the communication workflow. There are some things that the district and the department are doing that maybe we don't need to do anymore. And there are some things that are coming along, and AI would be one of them. AI is such a bad thing, but it's a good thing, but it's a bad thing. And so, but there's good coming out of a lot of that. It's being used in the communications business, and we're working with a lot of people that are using it. So that's something that probably needs to be studied and researched over the next couple of years. But at the same time, look at some of the things that are going on and say, we really need to be doing is Instagram and Facebook and Twitter or X getting us where we want to be? Maybe we need to be looking at other strategies as those things change. So those are the recommendations. I'll tell you one other thing. This is the last 2 slides I have. So we take everything that the district's doing, we put it up against what's going on around the country, just to kind of help you get a framework on what you're doing. We did the same thing with the survey, by example. In the survey, every one of your categories was above the national average in positive ones. So we look at best practices nationwide, we compare all the stuff that we do, and then we kind of determine where are you at. There's 3 places you would get rated, either established, emerging, or exemplary, or emerging, established, exemplary. School district has a long history with the school PR program, and so there's not any surprises. It's not like you're just figuring this out. I think that, so established for all of those areas. At the top there, I think the marketing and branding is something that is emerging. It's emerging for you as a district, but it's also emerging nationwide. A lot of people have not done much with that. Established your crisis communication, I didn't mention it because you've actually got good plans in place and things are fine. The bond finance plans and campaigns are exemplary. You've been successful in that. Obviously, doing something right there. And then diverse, equitable, and inclusive communication. So, from talking to everybody, that was not an issue. In my opinion, and opinion of putting it on the rating scale, exemplary would fit into that as well. So, that's a lot of information in a short period of time. The report's about 83 pages. What I do want you as a board and superintendent to know is that we don't ever recommend that people tackle all this stuff in 1 year. It's really about a 3 to 5 year strategy. We put them in the order of priority, what we think would be most helpful to you, but obviously it's your choice to go in the direction you want with it. But I'm just trying to say that being Ensmer's not expecting Regina to start clicking those off and have them done by next May, for example. There's some of those things that might take a year or 2, and then a lot of other coordination as well. It also takes coordination with some other staff. That's not just the public information department. So that being said, if I can get out of this thing now, stop sharing, and I'm back. I talk too fast for you?
No.
Okay. I am from New Jersey. I don't know if she told you that, but I got a motor mouth. So I'd be glad to answer any questions or anything like that. I don't know if you had a chance to look at the report as well.
Well, Tim, I just want to start, before opening it up for the board, that we certainly appreciate the time that you came to give us a thorough review. I do know that I met with Regina, several times, mapping out a few of the recommendations, as well as their department's long-term plan for some of the recommendations relative to what you guys recommended in your audit review and your findings. In fact, we've already implemented some of them to date. So I'll just open it up to the board. Any questions from the board before I let Regina kind of say where we are relative to next steps?
Very comprehensive.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
You got a good school district. I'll be honest with you. The hardest part about doing an audit for a good school district is I can write a whole report on all the things you're doing well, but that probably wasn't totally why you're here. You really do have a good district. I want a lot going on there.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Dr. Irvin.
Thank you, sir. Have a good.
Need me?
That's it. Regina, anything else?
All right.
That's it. Thank you, Mr. Carroll.
Have a good vacation next week, everybody. I look forward to talking to you. I'll talk to you in a couple of weeks, Regina.
Sounds good.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
And we'll just allow Regina just to kind of wrap up where we currently are relative to it, and next steps.
Right, so at the end of the focus groups and audit findings, Dr. Ortling and I met with Mr. Carroll before he left, and he kind of did a oral debrief of stuff that he noticed in some of his recommendations. So we knew at that time, you know what, we're not going to wait for this report. We're going to start making progress on these issues now. So thanks to your support, we have expanded our department with our community engagement coordinator. She's hit the road running, especially in regards to, as you saw, the recommendations for the alumni program and the historical data. So our alumni steering committee did meet. We've started to work on branding for the 2 alumni associations. We will have 2 chapters, one for Hahnville, one for Destrehan. In addition to that, we are also working on district history. If you go to our website now, we now have a timeline up on our website of information, key highlights from timelines throughout history moving forward. We are going to have a wall within the central office, close to the superintendent's office, that's going to show key timelines of the history of the school system. That will be done before the ribbon cutting on October 22nd. Next step is in this wall here in the PLC, the larger wall. On the outside in the hallway will be another timeline with even more dates and room to move forward to show the progress of this is where we've been and this is where we've come from. Because as he said, focusing on building that pride and looking at the progress that we've made. A couple of more things we have taken into consideration. I don't know if you've noticed with our social media, we've tried focusing more on day-to-day academics. You know, these are students in the classroom and our school liaisons. We've been working with them, having that program more focused. They're sharing a lot more of just typical day in, day out academic practices to show our community what we're doing in regards to the academics. And then also we are partnering with the Earhart Group. That was something that was mentioned at the board retreat in June. The board suggested, let's partner with the Earhart Group. They're already with the LaFawn Center. So when we met with them, we presented them a draft findings of some of the stuff coming up from the report. So they're going to work on with us on creating that overall communications plan for the district. That would be in addition to what we already do with the strategic action plan, and then hitting up on some of those key items as well that they mentioned.
So, any questions?
I think as far as communicating with the board itself, we put a direct link to the board president with like a click button. Arrow down.
Or they can press a button, click here to call him, straight voice.
Well, I mean, while we're at it, why don't we knock on my door and peek in and see who's there? I mean, while we're at it, right?
And I do think,
Come on,
I
man,
do
you're not
think,
laughing enough,
yeah.
man. You didn't like that?
Well, some of the recommendations, I think I saw some of you nod at the same. Some of the, you have to consider the context from which he's coming from a global or more national perspective, and we have to take into consideration our community based on our experiences and how we operate. And I think there are a lot of great recommendations, but there are also obviously some recommendations that we feel we don't necessarily need.
We don't have the issues on them.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I do look forward to regularly providing updates to the communications plan and targeted goals that we will have relative to that, because obviously the engagement and communication is vitally important. I appreciate, Regina and her department really embracing this and providing this opportunity to improve across the entire district, but specifically with her department and all the initiatives because we can kind of get complacent. So I appreciate this different look. I really do.
It's a worthwhile exercise, and just like he said, on a ever so often basis, I think it doesn't hurt to do that.
Absolutely, and when you look into the report, if you have time to review it, he talks about each of those 8 recommendations, and then he lists some recommended action steps. One of it was to have public information department retreats, so my department is meeting on Monday to do a deep dive into this plan and come up with some next steps and timelines based on that.
I do like the secretary part, because, even before coming to this role, when we used to do workforce schools, like, it was a clear part of your marketing plan to get in on the federal program side. You've got to get past the gatekeeper, because the gatekeeper knows all. I need to tell you all that. I think you all know that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I did, right?
Yeah, that's it, unless you want to go to the executive session.
Yeah, no, we'll do that first. Okay.
So staff, you're free to go. Have a great weekend. See some of you Sunday, see some of you tonight. I know I'll meet with some of y'all after, so find a room. They're about to go into executive session.
Hey, can I get a,
And then go back to one for the, I'll second.
Yeah, just find another.